You can see here I have a book with me. The writer of this particular book will be here in studio with us. There's a book is titled Cry the Beloved Children, and Deborah Kalei will be joining me on the Transformative Leaders segment as we talk about the art of writing. But before we get into all of that, we have exciting news right here on Good Morning Kenya. The Good Morning Kenya team has been joined or is gaining a new face right here.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you. By the way, Marie, how prepared are you when it comes to El Nino?
I think I'm prepared somehow, not completely.
Pause that. We'll have that discussion later. We'll be talking to one of the experts in the area of El Nino, and we'll be talking about the preparedness of the farmers in terms of El Nino. How can farmers prepare better before the onset of the rains? We'll be having that discussion later. Good morning, Vivian.
Good morning. All right. We will be right here waiting on that discussion, as it is a discussion that we should have. As we all know, the weather forecast says that this month is when we should be expecting the El Nino rain. So you definitely want to tune in for that conversation later on with Mike Megwe. Right now, I guess we go directly to the news.
Well, I think I want to give Mike like a Barras some seconds before I start the news, just to say something to our viewers. He's the new face of Good Morning Kenya here on KBC Channel 1. Yeah.
Well, Marie, they say when you want to achieve your dreams, you have to wake up. It's the first step you make in the morning. Yeah. And every morning as you wake up and view the world in a fresh perspective and take up the task of facing the new day, we'll be right here to make sure that your day is filled with fascination and insight. My name is Mike Megwe, and I'll be taking you through various topics, and today we are starting with preparedness on El Nino. Later in the program.
Indeed, Mike, thank you very much, and thank you to you back at home for making the time for us this morning. And we start off with the news, where the government says it will transform the country's largest slum, that is Kibra, into an estate within 10 years. President William Ruto, who was in Langata constituency for a prayer service, says the process of upgrading Kibra into an estate has kicked off under the Affordable Housing Program and is expected to be complete by 2032. Now, our reporter Frederick Parsayo starts our bulletin this morning.
President William Ruto was at the Deliverance Church in Langata constituency, Nairobi. It is here that the president revealed the government's plans to transform Kibera slums.
Hii Kibera slum iko hapa na zile slums ziko Nairobi. Kwanza hii ya Kibera, in 10 years hakutakuwa na slum hapa. There will be no slum. Hii tutakuwa tumeibadilisha imekuwa estate. Na Mungu atatujalia itafanyika.
The president was accompanied by a host of leaders, including Governor Johnson Sakaja and Principal Secretary for Lands Nixon Korir. The former MP for Langata constituency now says already the process of transforming the slum had kicked off under the Affordable Housing Program, which is also expected to create job opportunities.
Tunajenga nyumba 1,200 Kenya mzima. Hapa Nairobi peke yake, mpango yetu ni kwamba in the next 5 years tuwe tumejenga at least nyumba 1,200. Tuhakikisha kwamba vijana wale wako Nairobi hapa wanapata ajira. Na vile vile tunaondoa watu kwa slum.
We also appreciate that we have housing, which is also absorbing most of our youth.
We are focused on delivering the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, the Kenya Kwanza government manifesto, na tutafika.
The leaders accompanying the president used the opportunity to caution those who had grabbed public land that their days are numbered.
Zile public utilities zote ambazo zilikuwa zimechukuliwa siweze kurejea, ndio watoto wetu wapate pale pa kuchezea, mashule zetu zizikwe grabbed, tuhakikishe kuwa public utility is maintained.
The question of unemployment featured prominently, with the president revealing that the government had entered into bilateral agreements with different countries to export labor.
Tunakamilisha bilateral labor agreements na nchi karibu 12 mahali wanataka Wakenya wafanye kazi, na tumebadilisha sasa. Wakenya hawataenda kufanya sasa ati kazi ya domestic work ile ya tumekuwa tukisumbuana nayo. Sasa we have signed bilateral agreements ambayo ni ya semi-skilled, skilled jobs, and professional jobs.
The president also revisited the need for young people to invest in technical skills, adding that the government has sponsored 45,000 learners to join TVETs.
Ni lazima tuweke elimu msingi kamili, kwa sababu elimu ndio itatusaidia human capital ya Kenya iwe mahali ambapo tunaweza kuitumia kuhakikisha kwamba tunabadilisha uchumi wetu.
He further called upon leaders to work together for the sake of Kenyans, while adding that the government was adequately prepared for the El Nino rains as it moves to ensure the country is food secure.
We've started with the regional commander, with all the DCCs, with our sub-county admins, our disaster teams. We are going to publish areas where people must move. There's some areas where we will need to move people because we're just timing.
Kwa sababu miaka 60 baada ya kuwa taifa huru, haifai kuwa bado tuko na matatizo ya njaa. We are supposed to have sorted out the challenge of food in our country. So tumeweka bidii, nataka niwahakikishie ya kwamba tutahakikisha ya kwamba tunawasaidia wakulima wetu, supporting our farmers so that we can grow adequate food.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged Meru leaders to prioritize the unity of the region and amicably help resolve differences between the governor, Kawira Mwangaza, and the MCAs. Gachagua noting that the constant bickering was affecting development and political unity of the region. And as Abdiaziz Hashim now reports, Mwangaza could find herself before the Senate once more if MCAs go ahead with the planned impeachment.
For the second time in a span of 2 months, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has pitched tent in Meru County. It is here where the country's second-in-command found himself addressing the same issues that have dogged the leadership of Meru County.
Viongozi wamekuja kwangu, tumeongea. Nimeongea na Governor Kawira. Nimeongea na Deputy Governor, na pole sana. Nilikwambia hii maneno ya siasa, hapana chukua very seriously. Ati ukishituliwa kidogo unalala hospitali, wachana na hiyo maneno. Wewe simama.
Lakini usichukue siasa uingize kwa moyo ndani. Pumua siasa nje na ndani, usonge mbele.
Rigathi is saying the wrangles that have affected service delivery to the residents of Meru County should come to an end.
Hao viongozi watu ya kanisa wameuliza Rais William Ruto na mimi tukae kando.
Vizuri kila mtu tuwe tunaenda safari pamoja. Ukiona wewe unabaki peke yako, ujue wewe uko na kasoro kidogo.
Speaking at Kaero Methodist Church in Igembe North, Meru County, Gachagua urged the mountain to speak in one voice to maintain their political influence ahead of the 2027 polls.
Mimi ningetaka kuomba Governor, Deputy Governor, Senator, Medeka Lenturi, watu ya kanisa, muketi and decide what is good for Meru.
Members of the Meru County Assembly have threatened to impeach the governor 10 months after she survived another ouster before the Senate. Elsewhere, National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah has condemned utterances made by ACK Archbishop Jackson Ole Sepit.
Viongozi wa kanisa wakitukosoa ni sawa, lakini iko viongozi wengine wa kanisa imekuwa sio kukosoa, ni matusi. Na nimemsikiza kwa heshima Ole Sepit.
Meanwhile, a section of church leaders have called on the National Dialogue Committee members to reconcile ahead of their meeting on Monday for the sake of the nation.
Kwa ajili ya ile bipartisan talk, yale ambayo inaendelea katika taifa letu la Kenya, naomba rais pamoja na Raila Amolo Odinga waweze kuongoza jambo hili kwa njia ya amani, wapatane vizuri.
Finally, members of the Kikuyu Council of Elders are calling on elected leaders from Murang'a to shun divisions and unite for the benefit of the community.
We value strictly the togetherness of the people of Kenya because we know that way we, the Kikuyu community and others, will thrive.
Abdiaziz Hashim reporting there. 20 government houses worth 345 million shillings have been repossessed by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission as the anti-graft body steps up its efforts in fighting graft. EACC South Rift Regional Manager Godfrey Oyugi says the houses within Nakuru town had been grabbed by private individuals but were surrendered back to the public after a protracted but successful court battle. The commission now says it has embarked on reverting the houses to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. And as Timothy Kipnoso now reports, a prime 5-acre piece of land is also among the public assets recovered from unscrupulous private developers.
The campaign to recover government houses in private hands has begun in earnest, with the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in Nakuru cautioning against looting government houses.
Now, the recovery was through a civil suit filed by Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission against 3 individuals, namely Saleh Chepkole, Titus Kemboi, former Commissioner of Lands, Wilson Gachanja, and 2 private entities.
Speaking while inspecting the repossessed house units in Nakuru, EACC South Rift Regional Manager Godfrey Oyugi revealed that the civil servants are lawfully occupying their houses and paying rent to the government, but after remitting occupancy fees to private individuals and their proxies.
It will take a while, but the occupants of the houses, as we speak, are government employees and they are lawfully occupying those houses. So we will not be seeking their ejection. What we sought in court was to have the legal transfer to these private individuals to revert to the government.
This comes just a week after the Nakuru Environment and Land Court nullified all transactions, leading to the dubious transfer of the recovered land in order that the asset be registered in the name of Treasury Permanent Secretary in trust on behalf of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development.
In the judgment, the court upheld the Commission's submissions that at the time of allocation, the land was government property and as such was not available for allocation in any manner whatsoever to the defendants or any other person, and therefore all the transactions were declared to be fraudulent, illegal, null and void, and conferred no interest or right in or over the sued property to the registered owners.
Oyugi noted that some corrupt public servants conspire with private individuals to allocate land and house to themselves. The Commission says it will continue to press criminal charges against individuals who corruptly acquire title deeds. This even as he urged persons in possession of grabbed public land in the region to surrender the titles to the Commission voluntarily.
The Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims has spelled out a raft of new protocols for Muslim faithful planning to travel for Hajj in June next year. In the new protocols, the council says Kenya will only send 4,500 pilgrims from the 10,000 available slots, citing harsh economic times. At the same time, those planning to travel have until the 17th of this month to pay 20% of the funds for transmission to the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or risk being locked out. The council has also urged those planning to travel to work with the 50 approved agents to avoid being duped.
Hajj season for the year 2024 kicked off, setting the stage for 4,500 Muslim faithful from Kenya to attend the annual religious event. Unlike previous years, the 2024 Hajj season commenced immediately after the conclusion of the 2023 Hajj, in line with the new measures put in place by the Ministry of Hajj and Umrah Affairs of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Taratibu ya mwaka hii ni tofauti na mwaka zilizopita ambao watu walikuwa natoa visa mpaka siku ya mwisho ya Hajj. Mwaka hii haiwezekani. Mwaka hii inafungwa mwezi moja kabla Hajj.
The Supreme Council of Kenya has now issued new protocols for those planning to travel. Among them, the council says Kenya will send 4,500 pilgrims, citing the harsh economic times.
This year, for example, we have already sorted out the issue. We have already identified airlines that are going to travel to carry Kenyans, and we have even agreed with the proposed dates of how the airlines will be able to carry those Kenyans. It is basically meant to make the process seamless.
Tunataka watu wetu wajiandae by the end of Shawwal, kila mtu amelipa pesa yake, ameidentify his airline, amepata tikiti yake, amepata visa yake.
The council also says it has vetted and approved only 50 agents, down from 77 last year, in line with the new protocols urging those travelling to avoid working with brokers and only deal with registered agents. They also announced the deadline for submission of 20% of the funds was 17th of October, and the balance paid by 1st March, when the visa application process will commence until the 29th of April 2024.
Muhimu tujue kwamba baada ya kulipa zile 20%, Wakenya pia watatarajiwa wafanye bidii zaidi kwamba pesa zote ambazo zinahitajika kwa shughuli ya Hajj ipatikane kwa kufikia tarehe 1 mwezi wa March mwaka 2024, kwa sababu siku hiyo ndio siku itafunguliwa visa rasmi ya Hajj.
Lakini mambo muhimu sana kabisa ni Hajj imeanza, na vile serikali ya Saudi walisema watu wanafaa kulipa deposit ya 20% of the Hajj money.
No application will be entertained. They also called on the Department of Immigration to fast-track the issuance of passports to those planning to travel.
Na tunaomba sasa serikali ianze mambo ya kufacilitate passport. Na tunaambia watu Waislamu wote wajiandae, yule mtu ambaye anataka kufanya hii nguzo wa 5 wa dini ya Kiislamu ambaye ni muhimu sana, ajiandae, aanze kujiandaa sahihi kwa sababu mambo imebadilika.
The new measures are aimed at enhancing the overall travel journey for Hajj pilgrims, streamlining the entry process and ensuring a seamless and secure pilgrimage experience.
Preparations are underway to receive President William Ruto in Nyanza region for a development tour next week. The president is expected to inspect ongoing projects and commission a myriad of other multi-billion shillings projects in the region. Speaking ahead of the planned tour, ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo called on residents of Nyanza to embrace the government's development initiatives, noting that the government is ready to serve the Nyanza people without any prejudice. Achola Simon with more.
Will be making another working trip to Luo Nyanza as he seeks to woo the region that has traditionally voted for the opposition.
As you are aware, hosting a head of state is no mean feat. So we are carrying everybody on board, ensuring that all the integral stakeholder segments become part and parcel of the preparations for the visit, so that we have a fruitful visit and a tour, a reception befitting of the head of state.
In the 4-day visit, the president is expected to inspect ongoing projects as well as commission construction of multi-billion projects that seeks to significantly improve the economic standing of the region.
And he will be visiting Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay and Migori County to either inspect, launch or commission a number of development projects. In Kisumu, more specifically, he will visit a project in Nyando constituency, the fisheries project at Kabonyo Kanyagwal. He will visit the road in Koru that is being tarmacked. He'll visit the Lake Basin Mall. He will also visit the port. There is a new ship that has been built from scratch that will be commissioned.
In a consultative meeting with political leaders, government appointees and grassroots leaders, ICT and Digital Economy Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo and Interior Principal Secretary Raymond Omolo called on the political leadership and the locals to stand up in their numbers to welcome the president.
We have had meetings with a critical component of the elected members of parliament from this region. We are also engaging the leadership of the county governments, okay? So that nobody is left behind.
So we were working today to just plan and prepare for that visit to make it successful, and we are also calling upon the people of Nyanza to welcome and receive the president during his tour.
The leaders remained non-committal if the president will operate from the region, as has been witnessed in the past when on a working trip in Western Kenya and coastal region. This is the latest trip amongst many that the president has made in the region, reiterating that all regions will benefit from government development initiatives regardless of their political affiliation.
The Architectural Association of Kenya has been asked to interrogate the Real Estate and Regulation Bill 2023 that is before the Senate to safeguard the interests of its members. This is after the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya and the State Agents Regulation Board rejected the bill sponsored by Trans Nzoia Senator Alan Chesang. Speaking during an International Federation of Landscape Architects World Congress event in Nairobi, Mwingi Central Member of Parliament Gideon Mulyonge, who represents Kenya and Africa in the International Union of Architects, urged architects to maintain integrity in the devolved units where he noted corruption has been on the rise.
Want to urge AK to also develop interest on those regulations to make sure that they look at them with a toothpick and ensure that the interests of their members are catered for before the regulations are passed by Parliament.
The Dock Workers Union want the government to involve them in the planned expansion plan of the Mombasa port. Led by the Union Secretary General Simon Sang, the union is proposing a 7-day period during which stakeholders comprising the Kenya Ports Authority, county governments and local communities in the coast region can gather and engage with experts to gain a comprehensive understanding of the planned expansion. Now, the dock workers have expressed concern that the planned change might lead to loss of jobs for a section of workers. The government has since pronounced itself on the port debate, saying its intention is to expand the port so it can serve the neighboring countries.
What is considered forum to know that is when we have a forum which we have suggested that we need to be given 7 days for all stakeholders to sit together, bring on board the expert to be able to explain. The best we need to do is to have a round table. Let us look at what is concessioning. Let us look at what is privatization. Let us see which option are we going for as a country. Tuki-concession, there is a possibility ya kwamba gradually itaenda mpaka tuseme 5,000. Lakini kule nje watabuni kazi 100,000. So there is a plus outside to the bigger economy and a minus to the entity of Kenya Ports Authority.
On that note, let's take our first break. We'll be back with much more, including sports.
You're so sure about your accusations, I suppose you have a proof, right? I know how rotten you are. That is why it will only be me who's going to drag you out of my sawmill plant. Hey, you leave her alone, will you?
That's enough, Uriel!
You told my brother what I did. I have told you that when you irritate me, it will cost you very dearly, and I mean dearly.
Why don't you go with her? Instead of pursuing me just to annoy your brother. Because what can be expected from a man who allows his wife to treat him like this?
Ushindani hapa lazima na kuulizana maswali lazima tulizane.
Kate, what is this now?
Wakili, shut up and double your order. Manake huu mkutano utakuwa mrefu sana.
Ni kawaida yake kutoka mapema ofisini kila siku.
Kila siku?
Kila siku.
Afu wewe mwenyewe mrembo nikaenda ndogo. Waitwa nani? Nimekuwa kazini kwako na sikukuona, umetoka wapi?
Lakini it's too much. It's not good for business.
If you and the company are going to fire me today, then you should at least tell me on what grounds. What do you mean by I'm not up to standard?
Hey, don't force me to do it!
Move!
Back off! I'll call them, I swear!
Move! Get out!
All right, enough!
Hey,
I
stop!
dare you to hurt her! Come on! Where is she?
My loving family and dearest friends, I hope that you can forgive me for not saying goodbye. It may seem dark, but the sun will shine. Eventually, we'll reach our destination.
Welcome back, and we continue with the news where the Holy Bible, translated in the Pokomo language, was dedicated in a colorful ceremony in Tana River County that saw hundreds of Christian faithful from the coast region in attendance. The community hailed the move after more than 3 decades of waiting to translate the Bible at a cost of more than 100 million shillings. Our reporter Kasechana Masha has details of that colorful event.
Christian faithful from various denominations put their best foot forward to do a jig in celebration of the achievement that has taken more than 3 decades to achieve. The mood was festive at Doswe African Alien Church, Tana River County. Several church leaders, political leaders, and Christian faithful gathered for the unveiling and dedication of the Holy Book that was translated into the local Pokomo dialect.
Friends among the Pokomo, please do consider the Bible that we are putting into your hands very valuable.
Bible Translation Literacy National Director Peter Munguti says it took 38 years to translate the Christian Holy Scriptures into the Pokomo language, an exercise that cost more than 140 million shillings to complete.
For the 38 years, we have spent 140 million plus in the actual translation.
According to Munguti, translation of the Bible into local languages is tedious.
Translating the Bible in local languages is not very easy. It is a very complicated task.
What we realized, even in the early systems of education, the mother tongue is when people learn things very fast.
Mimi nimefurahi kupata Biblia kwa lugha ya mamangu.
Senate Speaker Amason Kingi, who graced the fate, lauded the initiative, saying it will go a long way in ensuring that Christians are not misled through misinterpretation of scriptures written in other languages.
Kwa sababu ya kukosa Biblia ya lugha hii, tunataka nafsi nyingi sasa ziingie katika mwili wa Kristo kwa sababu ya Biblia ya Kipokomo.
Tusipowafundisha watoto wetu, ndio tunapoteza watu kwa mafundisho mapotovu.
Plans to convert the Bible to audio format are underway as the church aims at spreading the Holy Scriptures.
Let's head to the counties now, where the Senate committee probing the Shakahola tragedy says it will require more time to conclude investigations. This is according to the chairperson of the committee and Tana River Senator, that is Danson Mungatana. Mungatana says the committee is still collecting information and views from the public, urging Kenyans to be patient. This and more coming up in our continuous roundup.
Kenyans will now have to wait a little longer for the findings of the Senate committee on what transpired in the Shakahola tragedy. This is after the chair of the committee, Senator Danson Mungatana, who was in Tana River, said they're still receiving testimonies from witnesses.
Tungojee kwanza tusikize mashahidi ambao wamebaki, alafu ndio tutafunga. Mungu akipenda mwezi huu wa 10 tutatoa ripoti kamili.
Elsewhere, Pastor Dorcas Rigathi attended a church service in Nyeri County where recovering drug addicts rehabilitated and her boy child program were in attendance.
But due to alcoholism, I was not able to continue. But now my mind is sober and I'll be able to work if given a chance.
Speaking after the child service, Pastor Dorcas said she is working to ensure they get job placements and those who dropped out of school resume learning.
Sometimes I'm overwhelmed because what came first, if you had seen them, and many of you may have seen them, and what God has done this, we can't take credit. I think it is a miracle.
Separately, 3 Quakers Friends Church in Kakamega will construct fish ponds in the church compound to teach locals about fish farming.
Wote tunataka waingie katika hiyo mradi wa kuweka samaki na kufanya mambo kuhusu agriculture.
Church members have already started preparing the fish ponds in Matawa, Mumias Town and Shibale churches. And the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, Embu branch, conducted a sensitization workshop for all female teachers in the county on ways to cope with mental illnesses.
We need to sensitize them on the times that we are living in and chart a way forward on how we are going to live going forward.
Finally, Kenya National Union of Teachers has faulted the Teachers Service Commission for failing to adequately address issues affecting teachers, such as the delocalization headache. Similar sentiments were expressed by Kakamega Governor Fernandez Barasa.
Tuko na walimu ambao bado they are serving in other counties, and again this is a matter which will bring up to our education committee so that all those teachers who are delocalized lazima warudi nyumbani.
Let's head to sports now, where Olympic marathon champion, that is Paris Jepchirchir, world cross-country champion Beatrice Chebet and Sebastian Sauer all bagged gold medals in the inaugural World Road Running Championships in Riga, Latvia, to propel Kenya to finish top in the event. Kenya also won team gold medals of the 2 half marathons to take its final medal tally to 12 medals, 5 gold, 3 silver and 4 bronze medals, and win the overall title ahead of arch rivals, that is Ethiopia, who finished second with 7 medals.
Well, no gun, just the go from...
Kenyan runners today registered exemplary performance in the inaugural World Athletics Road Running Championship in Riga, Latvia, after bagging 12 medals to top the medal standings. World cross-country champion Beatrice Chebet was the first to win a gold medal for Kenya in the one-day event.
Okay, on the road, and look at the clock too. It is indeed super fast, and Beatrice Chebet takes gold.
After she stormed to victory in the women's 5-kilometer race, Chebet clocked 14 minutes and 35 seconds to emerge victorious, beating her compatriot Lilian Kasait Rangeruk to the second spot.
In Latvia, in Riga, she is champion once more. Look at the time.
Olympic champion Paris Jepchirchir led a clean medal sweep for Kenya in the half marathon race after clocking 1 hour 7 minutes and 25 seconds to emerge victorious 1 second ahead of Margaret Chelimo. Catherine Amanangole finished third in 1 hour and 7 minutes and 34 seconds. In the men's half marathon, Kenya has also made a clean sweep of podium positions. Sebastian Sawe printed and overtook world silver medalist Daniel Ebenyo in the final stretch to win a gold medal in 59 minutes and 10 seconds, 4 seconds ahead of Ebenyo. Samuel Mailu was third in 59 minutes and 19 seconds. In the men's 5-kilometer competition, Kenya won a bronze medal after Nicholas Kipkorir finished third in 13 minutes and 16 seconds. Ethiopia's Hagos Gibrewet clocked 12 minutes and 59 seconds to win a gold medal ahead of his compatriot Yomif Gejelcha, who was a silver medal. World record holder Faith Kipyegon lost her first race of the season after she finished third in a mile race behind Ethiopia's Deri Bwetelji and Freewayn Hailu, who won gold and silver respectively. Nelly Jepchirchir finished fourth.
Freewayn Hailu of Ethiopia.
Stella Onyango reporting there. Now, Mombasa Stars won the first Coastal National Super League derby of the current season after edging out SS Assad 3-1 in a hotly contested match at the Mbaraki Stadium in Mombasa County. Meanwhile, 48 soccer teams in Kasarani constituency in Nairobi have benefited from a 1.3 million shilling sponsorship from the area Member of Parliament, Ronald Karauri.
Brian Mariah scored a brace as Mombasa Stars thrashed SS Assad 3 goals to 1 at the Mbaraki Stadium to register the first Coastal Derby win of the 2023-2024 National Super League season. SS Assad scored a consolation goal at the start of the second half, but Mombasa Stars added a third in the 77th minute. Meanwhile, Kisumu County Governor Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o and his Kakamega County counterpart Ferdinand Barasa are crying foul after the Western region was not considered as one of the hosts of the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations finals. The duo says that the region has more soccer lovers compared to Eldoret, which is widely known for athletics. Their sentiments were echoed by Kisumu Central Member of Parliament Joshua Oron.
For the sake of the growth of football in Kenya, Kisumu and Kakamega qualify for new stadia. Kisumu and Kakamega are home to galaxy of football talents and should be considered for new sport facilities. These two counties have produced more football stars than many counties combined in Kenya.
In Nairobi, 48 soccer teams from Kasarani constituency have benefited from 1.3 million shillings donated by the area Member of Parliament Ronald Karori in a bid to improve the standards of the game in the area.
Tumechagua team tano, one team from each ward. Wapate sponsorship. Sawa? Sponsorship. Your sponsorship ishikilie mambo ya logistics. Watu waache kulipa fare, alafu players pia wakuwe wanapata malipo, si ndio?
Now, FC Leopards failed to register their first win of the season in the FKF Premier League after being held to a 1-1 draw by Shabana FC at the Ulinzi Complex here in Nairobi. Brian Yakama put Leopards ahead in the 14th minute before Peter Ogechi equalized in the 22nd minute. Both teams are yet to register a win this season. In other matches, defending champions, that is Gor Mahia, were held to a 1-1 draw by KCB Nairobi at the Nyayo National Stadium, while former champions, that is Tusker FC, played to a barren draw against Talanta FC at the Ruaraka grounds. Bandari FC was beaten 1-0 in their backyard in Mombasa by Kakamega Homeboys. Now, that is Maroon FC, beat South Sea United 3-0 in the inaugural Sakaja Super Cup tournament that was held at the Police Sacco Stadium in Nairobi. Meanwhile, Mukuru Combined beat Creative FC 6-2. The event, which brings together 340 teams from all the 17 Nairobi sub-counties, will end on the 16th of December.
South Sea United suffered a 3-0 loss to Maroon FC at the Sakaja Super Cup tournaments held today at the Police Eco Stadium. Meanwhile, Mukuru Combined humiliated FC Creative 6-2 in a thrilling match held in the same venue. About 340 teams drawn from all 17 sub-counties in Nairobi are taking part in the 3-month soccer extravaganza that will pave way for more tournaments, which will bring on board all other sports.
Finally, we've started off the Super Cup, Sakaja Super Cup. Of course, our motivation comes from the core of our manifesto, which is a city of order and dignity, but hope and opportunities. There are a lot of talent that is out there in all our 17 constituencies, in our 85 wards. But for a long time, people have now had the chance, to be showcased, to come and play at this level, to compete for real money.
Winners of the tournament will take home 3 million Kenya shillings, while the second and third place winners get 2 million and 1 million respectively. The finals will be held on 16th of December.
Well, that's where we end the news this morning. Thank you so much for making the time for us this morning. Good morning, Kenya still continues. Stay with us if you can. Vivian and Mike are just on standby. They'll be taking you fast through the headlines. That is the newspaper review. So goodbye for now. My name is Marie Yambo.
Okay, from the news, we now get directly into the headlines. We get to find out what is happening or what the papers are saying this Monday morning. And if I just look at the front page of the Daily Nation. The main topic there is death on campus. And college should be a place where students go to acquire knowledge and hone essential life skills, but it's becoming all too common for parents to pick up bodies and shattered dreams of their children. Why does it happen? Who's at fault of and how can young people get help? This is a story that is on the Daily Nation. On page 2, they have highlighted that story on why maybe as a country we are experiencing so many deaths in campuses. And yet another story, I'll transform Kibera in 10 years, declares President Ruto as he roots for his housing plan. And that's a story that is on page 4, whereby the president yesterday declared his intention to transform the Kibera informal settlement into a modern residential area by the time he's done with his second term in office, should he be re-elected. And that's a story that you want to get into, and it's on page 4 of the Daily Nation. Another story right here, coffee cartels tried to bribe me. This are words from the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, and the Deputy President claims that unscrupulous dealers in the coffee industry tried to bribe him so that he can go slow on the reforms in the sector. Without substantiating the claim, Mr. Gachagua added that similar advances had been made toward Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi, but maintained that they will not be swayed. Another story right here on the Daily Nation is the victory that Kenyans acquired in Latvia, and the Kenya national anthem was sung 5 times yesterday on the shores of Latvia, where we had Kenyans sweep having clean sweeps right there in that particular race, as this was to celebrate Kenyan victories in the men's and women's half marathon, alongside women's 5-kilometer triumph and 2 team titles in the men's and women's half marathon at the inaugural World Athletic Road Running Championships in Riga, Latvia. I don't know what the Standard has, Mike.
Well, Vivian, in the front page of the Standard, they have a heading, "The Puzzle of a Government Living Large." This is a story talking about a story where economists are reacting to the Controller of Budget report and say, in spite of the cost of living going through the roof, and state officials are yet to tame their spending habits, splashing money with wanton abandon and can't be avoided. The story is continued on page 4, and the paper is saying Ruto must cut spending on costly events amidst biting costs. Of course, there is a very big talk amongst Kenyans concerning burgeoning cost of living, and this is unfolding at the backdrop of a burgeoning cost of living crisis and stern warning from the Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango. You can read that story on the 4th page of the Standard. There's also another story concerning the Haiti mission. Remember that Kenya is supposed to export 1,000 police officers to Haiti to help fight crime there. And the story here is talking about Haiti mission. Is Kenya displaying its naivety, or is it all about peace? The activists say Kenyan police have a poor human rights record and are unprepared to deal with Haiti's health. The Caribbean country's history is littered with foreign interventions that have often failed to bring lasting stability. The question is Kenyan police going to deal well with crime in Haiti? That story is told in detail on the 6th page of the Standard newspaper. There's also a story on story I saw here concerning community health promoters, what they are expected to do. The government's move to boost community health services and equip providers with basic testing kits have been uploaded. The stakeholders say the measure would revamp the healthcare and decongest hospitals. There's also on page 2 of the Standard, the object reforms in violating employment rights of teachers. Of course, that is the Kenyan Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers have opposed the recommendations in the Presidential Working Party on Education Reform. They say certain recommendations must be carefully examined, especially those that interfere with TSC. You can get the full story from the Standard. I don't know if you have another paper there.
Yeah, there are
what's happening on the
there are more stories still on the Daily Nation, and an increasing number of children are abandoning the traditional role of caring for the elderly as they move away from home. Now, according to Ms. Tesi Musalia, who is the wife of the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, this means that the Kenya's senior citizens are being left to face illnesses and health problems alone in their rural homes. As the world marked International Day of Old Persons, Mrs. Musalia called for an end to rejection and abuse of older people in the community. That is a story that is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. Now, parents to have control over TikTok content for children under new rules. We know that there have been complaints on about this particular social media platform, that is TikTok, and now parents will be able to set time limits, decide what content their children see on TikTok, and have unlimited access to minors' accounts if MPs approve a proposal to regulate the social media application. The regulations that were proposed by Mr. Ben Ndolo have been submitted to the National Assembly, and they have been submitted to the National Assembly's Public Petition Committee for consideration before they get to be forwarded to the House for ratification. And there's yet another story right here on the Daily Nation, and that is mystery deepens over trader linked to Somalia armed deals. For more than 3 weeks, family and friends of Zachary Kamala Sufi, a Mombasa trader who is linked to the illegal supply of arms to Somalia, have been worried about his whereabouts. Now, his disappearance, which happened on the 5th of September, has prompted his family to go to court to demand that the police, who they claim are behind this abduction, produce him. More to that story on the page 10 of the Daily Nation. And there's the story here on diabetes, and it says that diabetes highly undiagnosed in Africa. About 6 to 10 Africans living with diabetes are unaware of their condition. Despite the disease being easily diagnosed through routine screening and blood tests, it seems that many people are not aware of this particular condition, which they may seem to be having. A new report that was published shows that undiagnosed cases on the African continent are far higher than the global rate of 10%. That is what we have on the Daily Nation right here. And on the back page, by the way, of the Daily Nation, you can get to see how our champions, how our champions got to do us proud in athletics. As usual, we are the marathon
and the only
winners.
country that is our worthy competitor is Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
They They do give us some good competition, but we have what it takes.
We definitely do have what it takes if we go by, you know, what our athletes did, you know, over the weekend.
Yes.
You have another story there?
Yes, there's a story that has caught my attention on the page 8 of the Standard. The Senate House asks EACC to probe 100 billion expenditure by Turkana County. The Senate County Public Accounts Committee wants the EACC to probe this expenditure received by the Turkana County government since the advent of devolution. You can get more details of this story at the 8th page of the Standard newspaper.
Okay, yes. There's another story here that concerns one of the topics that we will be having today, a topic that you will be tackling, which is on El Nino.
Yes.
And the experts warn El Nino flooding in Amboseli Park. The Wildlife Research and Training Institute has identified Amboseli National Park and lakes in Rift Valley as some of the natural resources that could be adversely affected by the El Nino rains that are expected to take place this month. We're going to get more into that topic as you just get to dissect it for us later on in the bulletin. Right now, we take a very short break, but don't you go too far. We'll be back.
Government of Turkana welcomes you to the Ehale Center in Lodwa Town for the 7th edition of the Turkana Cultural and Tourism Festival. From the 12th to the 14th of October 2023. Come, experience the origin of mankind with its unmatched beauty from the beaches of Lake Turkana to the oil wells of Lokichar. Live on Channel 1, Radio Taifa and KBC Turkana Service.
Live from Broadcasting House, Nairobi, Kenya. This is KBC English Service.
Welcome to Beat Time Show, the very best of the 80s and 90s. Me, John Korani, JK.
Music hits across the decades.
This is the place to be after you've had a tough day. Here we celebrate love and life.
Don't believe me, just watch. The sound of KBC English Service.
I'm your host Caroline Wangishi, Karo Gatata Moshero.
My name is Geoffrey Mongai B.
News, information and entertainment. KBC English Service, Kenya's official national radio.
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wamekama up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wanaofa mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea studio mashinani huko Comarox, Lang'ata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through studio mashinani.
Welcome back, and now we dive into Family Check. And last month was International Recovery Month, and if you remember well, or if you were tuned in last Monday, we started the conversation on recovery. And today joining me yet again is Mr. Boniface Ndirango, who is the chairperson, Addiction Prevention and Recovery Association of Kenya, as well as the head of Leeds Eden House Group. And today he is here for us to get deeper into this conversation, because drug addiction is a menace in this country, and we need to talk about it, as 1.7 million people in the country abuse multiple drugs. So today we try look at the solutions. What are the solutions to addiction? And Mr. Boniface is here, and he will be taking me through that, as he is someone who has been addicted to several drugs. If you were in last week, you know that he told us that he was abusing multiple drugs, 10 drugs to be specific, including heroin, and he was able to get out of that, and he is now a recovering addict, 20 years on. So he is just the right person for us to talk to about the solutions to addiction. Mr. Boniface, welcome to Good Morning Kenya yet again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Vivian.
How are you feeling this morning?
Very good, very good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me back.
We are glad to have you. If we can just get into you telling me about what you do, or what the Organization of Addiction Prevention and Recovery Association of Kenya, what you do in there.
Oh, thank you very much about that. Yeah, I'm the current chairperson, actually the first chairperson of the Association of Rehab Centers. So there are quite a number of people who are silently, they observe a problem. If the government is too slow to do anything about it, they quickly start providing solutions for it. So we have quite a number, like 200 people around the country, or 200 groups, who over time have been involved in helping people who have an alcohol drug problem. There are some who are anonymous, like Alcoholic Anonymous, but then there are others who have now set up centers. So over time, in 2019, we thought that we should form an association that can help, advocacy issues with government, work closely with NACADA to supervise and internally regulate ourselves, work with county governments, because they are across the country, look at financial areas in which they can or get funding for their programs. So this informs the association. The association, why it was formed. It's like a conglomerate of a group of rehab centers across the country who would like to play a better role, but not as individuals, but as a group. Because they are the ones on the ground, they understand the problem, they are seeing it every day. They are a source of information for research and strategic information. That is why we formed the association. We're grateful to NACADA. They've been very supportive about the association.
Okay, what of the Leeds Eden House Group?
Oh yeah, that is how it started. So about 20 years ago, me and my co-directors met in a rehab center. This was just immediately after the elections of 2003. Must have been very young then. Then there was a lot of hope, just like we are having now with where there was a lot of, just like what Dr. Rigathi is doing. 20 years ago, we had a little focus on from the government around helping street children and street families relocate and restart new lives. The country really wanted to reignite itself, and I was one of those people, because I had given up hope. I was a drug addict for a long time, like 10 years. I had lost jobs, I had lost my family, and the hope in the country dissipated in me, and I decided to do something about my addiction. And that's why I met my co-directors. We were in a rehab setting. One of us was our counselor, and we started discussing how we could expound on this, because it was more informed, structural, and we agreed that we were going to start something. That's how we got to start a halfway house. We called it Eden. And from there it has grown into 7 centers in 5 counties. I've helped over 5,000 people and over 15,000 families. The inquiries we hear, the kind of support that we have given in Kwale, Mombasa, Voi, Nairobi and Kiambu. But now, since we have the Association of Rehab Centers, of which I'm chairman, there's no need to form everywhere. We just work with what we have and build on it. That's how we started Eden House. Yeah.
Okay. Last week you had mentioned to us how you got into drug addiction, or how you actually started abusing drugs, and it was by simply, you were still quite young, you were in your teen years, and you were just given by someone that you used to admire, someone who was a good football player, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So that's how you got into drug abuse and eventually addiction. If you can just take us through that process of you getting into addiction. You know, you just start, it's like a joke, you just do it for fun. How did it get to being an addiction for you?
Yeah, thank you, Vivian. And I think this is it's even supported by the current research that was done in Nakada. A lot of people start on addiction. There's actually no one who sets out their mind. You know, like there are people watching you, Vivian, and think, one day I would want to be a presenter on TV. There's no one, no child who would wake up and look at the TV and want to be a drug addict, live in the streets, be, that kind of an alcoholic or a drug addict. There is not one of them. There's nothing admirable about it.
Yeah.
So what is it that happens? What is it that happens between that group of young people growing up who never want to be anything like a loser, downtrodden, living in the streets, hungry, scamming off people, person? No, none.
Yeah.
None.
No one.
So how does it happen? What really happens?
Yeah.
And that has been studied. It starts very simply by some things we call gateway, harmless gateway drugs. And usually it's by people we admire. Sometimes even family members. For me, it was one of the most admirable soccer players I had seen growing up, and he was playing for the national team. He was winning awards. People looked up to him everywhere he went. And I was a young footballer then. I was about 16, 17. And you know, monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
So one day he passed a cigarette to me. A cigarette. Just say, I have a puff. I coughed and he laughed and they had banter. Then I tried to show that actually the next puff I'm not going to cough.
Yeah.
I didn't start smoking then, but the next time he passed on something else, and it was Mira. The next time he wanted to treat me because I'm growing up. I'm 17 now, I'm becoming a better player, I'm following on his footsteps. He takes me out to drink 1 beer or 2. All this looked harmless because maybe I was energetic. Most of the time I'm taken away by school, boarding school. I was in a very good school, Sarai Boys Center. We have very good, and that's the opposite of it now, very good people to follow through with. So when we finished Form 4, it's when I think that the gap years between that and university is when the problem really kind of started to show. Now in retrospect, but that's when we had more time on our hands. We didn't have these trainings that we now have. So very soon, it became not just a Friday, Saturday thing. Now it becomes habitual. Experimentation, then it became habitual. And then after that, it started taking more time. That is not even just Friday, so it's a progressive illness. Yeah? So within a short time, I was trying now, not just when there's no alcohol, I would drink hard stuff. And within time, some bangi is passed around. Yeah? And that is the same pattern that took effect until one day I was given heroin after the death of a very, very close person. It's a painkiller. That's my first day to use heroin is through the death of my mom, my foster mom, which was my auntie. And she reminded me of the death of my mom. And I had some childhood trauma. Sometimes untreated childhood trauma can really show up. Now I understand that, but heroin just became like the perfect fit for me because it's a painkiller. It reduces even emotional pain. That's how I eventually took that path that made me, move from a potentially very successful person in football and sports. I was playing for the national team at 19. I was earning money from football, the first professional team. I know some of these players who played with me at that time. Very good players, like Kina Musa Otieno.
Oh, you played with Musa Otieno?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's how it went on. I eventually, and we have lost quite a number of sports people in this. Sports people, after they stopped playing football, the adrenaline rush that we look for in sports is replaced by for some of us, is replaced by substance abuse.
And I'd love to know, as you were getting into drugs, is no one noticing at home? No one is noticing back home that, okay, there's some changes in this young man over here. Was no one noticing it?
No. I think by the time they were noticing, it was a little too late. And maybe now, those are solutions we're talking about now. There should be people watching. Our communities have disintegrated a lot. I come from my mom was a single mama, and she died when I was very young. So there was no father figure in our family. And with the disintegration of our society, we don't have this community approach where father figure can take over and start to look after you. So there was no one really, no adults watching, no senior person trying to say, hey, stop a little bit, what's going on? And those are the kind of interventions that we need to start with. For me, it's very unfortunate that by the time the family was trying to make an intervention, it was already late. I was a heroin addict already. I was almost losing my job. And they're saying, this guy is getting lost. My wife is gone. My child, she has gone with the child. Jobs, I've started going to hospital. I've started being sent on compulsory, go get help kind of stuff. I'm not there at home. I'm a heroin addict. It was already late. Yes, it was just a matter of time before they also told me now, tembea na Yesu.
And from what you're telling me, it's clear that they noticed very late, because now you're talking about wife, children, you're talking about jobs, and you started this thing while you were still a teenager at 17, 18, 19. So what is the problem? What should be done? What are some of the solutions? Maybe if we just get into the solutions, what are some of the solutions that should be taken beginning from home, just home?
Yes. First. Okay, let's focus on that age group because that's the most... I even heard you earlier because I was seated there and you're reading news and you talked about universities becoming places where
lots of death are happening.
Lots are happening. A lot. Yeah. That is the university, colleges, and the surrounding neighborhoods where these kids live are becoming the hotspots of the brewing of addictions and mental health issues, their comorbidity. And I also want to, Pastor Doka has really done well to focus on the vulnerable communities. I would like her to put a little bit more focus, Nakada also, on that community. because we have to have specific interventions targeting that age group between 18 and 24, or between 16 and 24, specific interventions. Yeah? We cannot just allow ati where uliambiwa you should follow. We have to have interventions, and these interventions can be done in a way that and in places like Israel, you have groups of people who work with that kind of problem, and they send them to parties, places where these people drink, where they live. There's always somebody watching over that population. If you start drifting, because there is a placement criteria or a way of looking through the nature of the problem and the development of the problem, and interventions in between. So early, brief interventions are very critical for this population. Yeah. So trained, like I've had recently last week when we were here with you, the same days when they were launching the community health workers, and I would really want Nakada and the county governments to really train these community health workers around addiction issues and interventions around this population, this population of people who are drinking. And it's not to stop them, because young people will always experiment. They will always start developing habitual behaviors. But what are we doing about it? Yeah, what are we doing about it? Are we able to identify the ones that are developing a problem? Are we able to do interventions early? Are we able to separate and provide community-based interventions? Those are critical in our moving forward, and there are programs around that. NACADA, I think, is now working at community-based rehabilitation programs. Are developing the modules for that, and those are the lower cost end of things that need to be done for that population. Now there's a younger population that we can do a lot of prevention work between the ages of 0 and 8. A lot of kids, even looking through my own life, I can see that some of the parental skills were missing from parents. Neglect, abandonment, no guidance of young children, and that is where some of these things form. And it's not just for poor populations or people who are of little means. And many parents between the age of 0 to 8 have abdicated their responsibilities to their children. They are not available to their children. They're busy working, looking for money. They forget to connect with the child at that time. And some of these underlying issues start to develop at that time. A child loses confidence. They start to look at they are probably abused by their nanny, and within a short time, when they are 17, 18, they're always looking at somebody else to help them sort out their problems. So what we do between the ages of 0 and 8, how we equip parents, and NACADA has done a good job with that. In their last report, I saw that they had reached out to close to 10 million parents across the country. I hope we need to build on that to know what content families ought to. And that's why, again, I think the community health workers would be a very great ideal persons to reach out to these 100 homes who can actually inform and educate families on how to prevent addiction and prevent other diseases by bringing
from
up
such
healthy
an early age.
Yes.
Okay. And speaking about that, the age group that you've just spoken about, I remember last week you were here with Anne Mathu from NACADA, and for her, she said that she took her first drink at the young age, at a very early age, at only 9 years. She took her first drink of alcohol, and this drink was given to her by her father. Yes, by the dad. So, I mean, how do we go about that? If it's, someone may assume maybe a drug problem or a problem may come in later on in your teen years, but if we look at it, there are people who get into drugs from as early as 8 years old, 9 years old. So how do we equip parents really?
Yes, you see, and again, this is where the society really comes in to set up a support system. In certain countries, if you start showing that kind of behavior, if a parent is already an alcoholic because they have a problem, so they should get help themselves, or they have they're functional alcoholics, and they're risking this observation by the children, and neglecting their children are usually taken away from them. So development of foster families and support of foster families. And traditionally, we Africans had a way in which uncles, aunties, relatives took care of each other. So if we can find a way in which the government or the county government support this as a way of fostering and developing spaces where parents are taken to task about their parental. Sometimes I actually think people should get a certificate before they get children. Some people should actually go through a course.
There should be an improvement of now you are qualified to become a parent.
Yes, because these people are going to affect the community. Do you know how much, do you know the cost of it? You know, some people have calculated. 6% of the GDP is wasted. You know, these people are going to be future homeowners. They are going to buy cars. Their economies. When they are brought up already from this word go, they are disadvantaged. They are disadvantaged. They are pathological. They are brought up in pathology, in a community that it's almost like a curse. That's why you see where science is very nuanced about research. It is possible to even identify hotspots in communities where these things happen a lot. You can tell that these people are going to develop. Science has been done. They follow through the lives of people over time. That's why some people say in the US, the black community neighborhoods, it's almost like a generational curse that repeats itself. Becomes a disease over a period of time, because the children will follow up after their deceased parents, watching how they behave and how the attitudes that they have, and that disadvantage moves on. Somebody has to break it, and the government interventions can start intervening as early as possible. So yes, we should have family courts. We should have interventions to protect children. The school and adult parents of even communities should be encouraged. You know, it doesn't take just your father. You know, if your father or mother are not responsible and are the ones now creating this environment, it just requires an uncle or a neighbor who is an adult to start stepping into the life of this person, because that's what that kid needs. It doesn't have to be the actual parent. So if you're a sober human in a community, maybe we should develop programs for such. Start taking responsibility for your community. Start looking out for kids in your neighborhood who have been neglected, and we see them. We just, because of the new attitudes of life these days, no one apart from, again, I want to shower Dr. Rigathi, and we need to really support her programs, Dr. Dorcas. Apart from her and other people who have worked with these populations, we just need to restart to look at and see our responsibility in nurturing, guiding, and providing a better example where we see families are already in distraught. Yes.
And I get you on that, because there are people who are into drugs or who are abusing drugs at the moment, and it ties from where they come from. You know, they grew up seeing that in their family. All their uncles drink alcohol. They're, addicts to alcohol. All their aunties, the mom, the dad, like, it seems like it's genetic. So for them, even if you start talking to them about you should stop drinking and all that, they would wonder, why should I stop? I mean, everyone else in my lineage is doing that or has been doing that. So what makes you think that I am the one who's supposed to break this curse? So maybe to someone who is in that situation, what would you tell them where they feel like, who said I'm the one who's supposed to break this this curse, let me call it a curse, who said that I am responsible for that? Why not the next generation? What would you say to that person if they're watching us right now and they're from a family that is full of addicts and they're starting to get into that, line as well? How do they get out of it?
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah. There have been some theories around that. Some people think that there is a genetic predisposition to addiction.
Yeah.
And there are some who think, the argument about nurture and nature, and some people just think that they have that predisposition to using. Yeah, and yes, you can have that predisposition to using, but if you don't use, if you don't put that X factor plus the drink, then you would have a problem, because you can see the results, unless you want to be like what you see. Yeah. Then and maybe that is what I would help with, highlight. We have a thing we call playing the movie to the end. So for a young person who is developing a problem, you can show them the progression of the problem in their lives, and just play that movie for them to see. Yeah, highlight the information and educate. Secondly, you can for sure that path has been trodden. You can redirect that energy to something positive. Something called positive psychology among that youthful population. How do we engage these people in ways that they receive the same thing they are looking for in a drink or a drug, but in sports, in education, in extracurricular activities, in long time ago, communities, and I think now communities are being rebuilt around that, had a way in which they would provide self-worth, self-esteem by engaging these populations in productive stuff. In our country now, we're beginning to see that there is something about environment that we can get engaged in positively. There's something about a good health. There's exercise we can do. We can go hiking. Opening opportunities for positive engagement of the populations, these young populations that are experimenting on drugs, and refocusing that energy in that direction can divert people towards the harm that is awaiting them ahead of the game. Yeah.
What would you say is the proper age for parents to start talking to their kids about drugs? Because if you ask me, growing up, no one really talked to me about drugs. I don't remember being sat down by my mom or my dad and being told, there are things called drugs, there's alcohol and this, and the effects of it and why I should not get into them and all. So when is the appropriate age, and is this a discussion that should be had in every home?
Interesting. Yes, there's a structured level of information that can be used as a guiding tool for what level of information you need to discuss with what age group. So when I trained in Israel, they had something to do between the 4 and 9, but it's just certain level of information that is helpful for that population, not the total. No.
Information that mind can be able to comprehend.
And the attitudes that come with it. Even the self-expression that is allowed, the ability, support protective factors that can build this child to be able to internally make decisions. So kids who are brought up well have a lot of confidence, able to express themselves, but kids who are shut down are likely to develop a problem. So development of proactive, yes, that's one. Now between the age of 10 and 14, there's a certain also level of engagement that is different. Then there's a young adult age group between 16 and 24. That's where now there's nothing being done, that we really need to scale up our operations. That is where they're experimenting, developing habits. They are free, they have some money, and that is where the engagement and the brew of the problem is, if nothing is done. And then, of course, between the after 24 is now just either people have to seek rehab, which is very expensive. The cost to the economy is very high, as I mentioned, 6%. interventions they've put to place can reduce 6% to 3% of GDP, and it becomes very expensive to manage these people. Rehabilitation is very expensive for them. So for the younger lot, it's best to invest. As they say, 1 shilling spent on prevention saves about 9 in treatment. So the earlier we start engaging with our young ones, the better.
Yeah, prevention is better than cure.
Yes, prevention is definitely better than cure.
Yeah.
Yes, because the costs are even, eventually everyone pays. You know, everyone pays. Have you heard of like the young girls who are left out in communities and are not taken care of, and then they get HIV and then they spread it in the communities. So communities where there's drug addiction and alcoholism have higher rates of HIV infection. So we end up paying the cost of insurance. The whole community end up. So doing early interventions makes sense. Investing in county governments, investing the money that they collect on bar licenses.
Okay, I'll ask you to hold that thought. We take a break, but we'll be back to continue with this conversation.
If you and the company are going to fire me today, then you should at least tell me on what grounds. What do you mean by I'm not up to standard?
Hey, don't force me to do it! Move!
Back off! I'll call them, I swear!
Move! Get out!
All right, enough!
Hey,
I dare you to hurt her! Come on!
Where is she?
My loving family and dearest friends, I hope that you can forgive me for not saying goodbye. It may seem dark, but the sun will shine. Eventually, we'll reach our destination.
If you're so sure about your accusations, I suppose you have a proof, right? I know how rotten you are. That is why it will only be me who's going to drag you out of my sawmill plant.
Let go of me!
Hey, you leave her alone, will you?
That's enough, Uriel!
You told my brother what I did. I have told you that when you irritate me, it will cost you very dearly, and I mean dearly.
Why don't you go with her instead of pursuing me just to annoy your brother? Because what can be expected from a man who allows his wife to treat him like this?
Kuna kitu kinakusumbua na sijaelewa ni nini.
Yaani mayai ni yangu ama ni ya kuku?
Zinapeleka nanga.
So you can probably show me where.
Unaona kwa ile parapara? Yes. Uende hivi ukifika kwa ile usunguke kwa roundabout. Sasa ukisunguka kwa hiyo roundabout, uwebu anguke na hiyo mkono hii.
Not the washrooms.
Hey.
The restaurant itself.
Aren't you? Yes, yes.
Kona shida. Kama hujaniandika kazi unaniuliza nini?
Basi utafanya yenye nimesema.
Mimi hata niko sana niko kasi.
Na hivi si ningejua kizungu hata ningetukana. Hata useme out. Shika, kamata.
Welcome back and thank you for staying tuned. In studio with me is Mr. Boniface Ndirango, and he is here to talk to us about the drug menace that is in the country at the moment. And we just try to see where are the loopholes and how do we what are some of the solutions to this problem? How do we eradicate drug abuse and addiction in the country? If I may ask you, what is contributing to this menace? Why is it that we have such a high number? 1.7 million people are a lot of people to have who are being said, according to statistics, they are using multiple drugs, not just one drug. 1.7 people are using multiple drugs. What is contributing to this?
Yeah, a number of course, thanks Vivian. A number of reasons. Yeah? A number of reasons. There's been a very, and this is not happening in Kenya only. Yeah? Even the drugs that you see that are being used here usually are being copied online. So there's quite a bit of the influence of online, what drugs are being used outside. Sometimes even, there was a time they were talking about these drugs and I was telling them to be careful about how much information you give, because it just sometimes can create a lot of curiosity. So there is something about availability of information and what drugs are being abused and that new people are trying. That is one.
Yeah.
But two, there is definitely a shift of our society from how it used to be and what it is. So around the world you'll see many things like that happening in India, in Thailand, in other developing countries, where the shift from communal living and support systems around community are moving into urban areas. In fact, that is how this problem really started in Kenya. In 1904, in 1904, there was a high alert by the government of I think 1924, not 1904, alert that the young people in Nairobi are drinking a lot. What's going on? Because culturally, Africans were not allowed to drink.
Yeah.
So there's that shift. Then secondly, whenever there is a serious economic shift, there is a pressure that comes with that, and people want to avoid or want to avoid how they feel and want to change how they feel, and that is the sense of addiction, development of that problem. Our cultures also have shifted towards, if you think about it, those age groups where we don't have an alternative engagement to that young population. That contributes. A long time ago we used to have sports club, we used to have community areas for recreation, we used to have, now there's less of that. So people are enclosed, the only way they know how is to go and watch Man U playing Crystal Palace, and in the process there's a bar around, and that is the culture of drinking develops from there. It becomes the only kind of outlet available, even for people who don't like to drink. So we need, as a community, to really redevelop some of those alternatives, like environment, walking, developing targeted programs that explore this energy. So that is another. I've also seen a lot of people now developing urban areas and communities where they develop this. They make sure that their urban area has a swimming pool in the building. It has all the things that the people need in that. There's a place to play football, 7-a-side. So the people who are developing communities, or like the new housing model that is coming up, needs to make sure that there are spaces, green spaces, where we capture this energy. Like the housing, we must also agree that quite a number of people cannot live by themselves. Some people need structured support living. So we need to engage as a county government and a Ministry of Housing to develop a model around every community where there are some homes available for people who need to be supported to be able to live. Some people are not capable of living by themselves. They just need support systems. They will have structure, and there's modules for that. So certain interventions have to be deliberate to intervene Yeah? And it's not just about giving. It is, in the long run, as I mentioned earlier, the cost exceeds. If you do, the cost of doing nothing exceeds the cost of the investments to provide. For example, they are building 70,000 homes now in Mukuru kwa Jenga. Why can't 1% of those homes be for community, for people who need supportive living, for people who need to be guided and supported to recover and to live? Yeah? Mental health and addictions are intertwined, and they have a big impact on the communities.
Yeah. So the main thing contributing to drug addiction in the country is the lack of community, according to you.
Yes, that is one.
Yeah.
Interventions, proper community interventions. Of course, yes, I think that is perhaps the most important. That's
the main thing. If we sort that, then we'll be okay. Okay. You've touched on alcoholism, and I feel like if there's a problem in this, one of the problems we have in this country, and there was a statistic that was out also just the other day, where they were showing that young people are drinking more. They're really drinking more now in the country, especially in Nairobi. And, you know, we just take it as normal sometimes, you know, like you just have a drink. It's something, it's a social thing you do, you know, it's not really, you know, a problem as that. So when exactly does it become a problem? Because drinking, I was joking with someone the other day where I was saying, when you tell someone you're drinking, it's no big deal. But when you say, I don't drink, then it becomes, why? How come you do not drink? Because it's been taken to be something that is so usual. It is so casual. So when does it become a problem? When does an individual realize that, okay, actually, alcohol to me is not just something I do to pass time. It is actually a problem now. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Number one, you know, addiction is characterized by three things. One, an obsession of the mind. So when you figure out that though you don't drink on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but all that you're thinking about on Monday is how Friday will come, then it becomes, well, it starts becoming an obsession of the mind. It's internal. You have to look at yourself. Are you beginning to obsess about it? Is the drink becoming a serious part of your thinking and thinking about it? Those are early signs. Yeah? So that when you think about fun, the only thing you think about is when we are going to meet Kina Vivian and Nani weekend. And then on Monday, you're talking about what happened last week. Yeah? Then you know it's taking a bigger proportionate of your mind. And you know those where decisions are made. So an obsession of the mind. Yeah? And sometimes, you know, we have also, there are emerging addictions, Vivian. It's not just about substance abuse like alcohol. Yeah? And the trends have also shown lately, like you mentioned, that marijuana actually has doubled.
Yeah.
Yes, the acceptability of it, the pressure online to legalize it, the availability. These days you don't have to know a dealer. You just go online and you'll find somebody who can distribute it for you. Yeah? There are people who just bring bags with a piki in your house, and they're drug dealers. They don't even know what they are bringing.
Delivering.
Yeah, yes. Those are the new online ways of distribution that have come up. So the young population has found itself in very tricky situations now. New tricky ways in which they can access. It's affordable, it's available. So that was number one. Number two is compulsion to behave. So when you find that you have started to feel like you have to, it gets to Friday after 2 p.m. and you have to go and have a drink. You feel like you need to go and have a drink. That there is nothing else you want to do, you just want to have that drink. That compulsive behavior becomes a key indicator. Yeah? Key indicator of the problem. So I didn't intend to drink much. I only wanted to have 2, then I ended up having 6. or I've ended up now spending all the money that I was supposed to pay school fees with, or I've ended up using a lot of time I had no intention of. I wanted to study over the weekend, but the drink took over. Now that compulsion of behavior is and last but not least, is that despite the negative consequences of the drinking, I still continue to do it. Yeah, yesterday I did a mistake. God, I slept with somebody I didn't plan to. I don't even know whether I used a condom, and that makes you drink even more. Yeah. Now you know the things are.
It's actually a problem.
Yes. Mambo ni matatu.
As you put it.
Ya kwanza, I think the obsession of the mind.
Yeah.
And 2, compulsion to behave. And 3,
when you keep doing it even after there are negative effects.
Then you know you are headed.
You have a problem.
The earlier we start having interventions, the brief interventions for that group of people, the more we are going to save. Because that is a sure bet. Sure bet. It will just take shape. It's just different. It just move. It can just mutate from marijuana, from cigarette smoking, to marijuana, to drinking hard liquor, to using emerging drugs. Any drug that will make you high. Yes.
And speaking about any drug that will make you high, there's a feature I saw just the other day, actually yesterday, on drug abuse, and it is being shown that people are actually mixing drugs for themselves, like prescription drugs. They go take different prescription drugs that are used maybe for, that are strong painkillers and so on, and then they mix it up with maybe some known drugs like heroin or cocaine and all that. They mix it up. So my thinking on this is, are there regulations put in place for prescription drugs? Like, how come I can just go to a chemist and ask for this and this and this and this drug? Are there regulations for that? Because as we've seen, people are using that, to get themselves high. It's not like they need those drugs, for a certain illness or something. They're just going to get several of them, mix it up, and then sell them.
It's a very deep question you have asked, and it actually goes to what we are really proposing for NACADA to do more. Is 2 theories around this. There's a supply suppression theory and the demand reduction theory. The supply suppression is what you're just mentioning. How available are these drugs, especially psychoactive substances, and what regulates? So the Pharmacy and Poisons Board, the administration, doctors, pharmacists who sell this stuff, and you can tell from the proliferation of chemists. Now those are the legal drug dealers. Drug dealers, that are actually legally allowed to sell drugs. So some of those substances, when profit is the only motive, they will sell. They'll sell any of those drugs. So we need to really firm up and a system of following through who has what. It can be integrated. We have computer systems these days that you can integrate, and there has to be purposeful body that is genuine. Watch our corruption. The proliferation of drugs as a trafficking area, we have to have very genuine people in those places who are looking at that supply suppression strategy. That is number one. But the most important among all this is a demand reduction. Perhaps the most important strategy towards supply suppression is to cut out the demand. And cutting out the demand is providing solutions to those addicted people. Those people you're talking about. Because those people are at a catch-22 place. They cannot do without it. I'm a former heroin addict, I know very well. There is no way they will, unless you intervene and help them get away from this addiction. And that is what we should be doing at this time. Because there's a shortage due to supply strategies that have been used by this government, and the focus on by Professor Kindiki and his PS has really helped to reduce the availability of these hard drugs. The consequence is that the addiction demands that you use something. So if you are not providing a service, equally that will mitigate this demand, then you are actually sending these kids to early death. So we need to develop programs like the ones Her Excellency, and this is NACADA now should, because there's even a fund for this. There's a, if you read the Narcotics Psychotropic Drugs Act, there is a rehabilitation fund that is in that law that actually taxes and takes money that have been used by suppliers and dealers to go towards rehabilitation. That's the kind of fund that should be activated to support these people through the court system. It's a system that has been set, it has just not been activated. That's where the Ministry of Interior, prisons, the courts, alternate to incarceration, and this fund to specifically pick up these populations and provide the services. We, as the Association of Rehab Centers, have the expertise, and we will provide the support systems for helping with the rehabilitation. But we need interventions like those ones Her Excellency is doing. We can't just sit back and watch and complain and do nothing. These guys are dying, and they will use anything, because the pain is too much. The kind of pain that an addict goes through from withdrawals have been described by
it's actually physical pain.
Yes, physical pain. If you read, I read this when I was in that kind of pain. I read Psalms 38, and if you read Psalms 38, you will see David, it's like he was going through withdrawals. The pain is physical, very severe withdrawals. It is spiritual, it's emotional, it is mental, it is torture. There's a guy who has written a book called A Million Little Pieces, of describing how that person feels, that addicted person who is now dependent on drugs. Because heroin is one of the most serious, most addictive painkillers in this world. So we need to develop interventions. We can't just withdraw the drugs. There are some countries which even provide the heroin to in a clinical manner. They bring them to a hospital setting and provide clean needles, provide clean heroin, and then weed them off over time. With the rehabilitation.
Do we have enough rehabilitation centers in the country?
We have, and they're not even enough. We don't even have a capacity to deal with 5% of the problem. We have a capacity to deal with about 10,000 beds at this time. 10,000 beds. Majority of the rehab centers are very expensive for the average person. There is no fund available there is resources available, but have not been targeted to these people to provide this service. So we need to have that. 5% is too little. The problem is too huge. Interventions are a crisis that needs to be coordinated, and the best person to deal with this is NACADA as a body, to develop programs where they collect these people. We can use the prison system, we can use medical system, we can use the available youth programs and spaces and public spaces, and bring together medics, multi-sectoral approach, addiction counselors, social workers, and provide a service that is critically needed at this time, especially at the coast. We can't just be watching this thing day in, day out, every Sunday. It's also very traumatizing for populations to see how others are hurting. We need to develop those programs, like today.
And just according to you, how far in are we in the fight of drug addiction and finding solutions to it? How far are we in the fight?
Kenya has been lauded around the world and in Africa as one of the most focused, and this administration especially has been lauded as one of the most progressive. Progressive. One of even the media. I must thank you very much, because lately, the last 6 months have seen a serious focus by media houses on the addiction issues. The country's two top leaders are very keen on this. The administration is very keen on it. We just need the involvement and programs. That is the area that needs a little more nuanced approach, or experienced people who know how to mitigate against this, especially the area of treatment and prevention. That is where I think the focus should move, because that will have an impact.
Yeah.
There, I can say we are at less than 5%, and that is really bad. Less than 5% is really bad. We need people who know what they're doing in that area to focus on this kind of programs that collect, If we have an education system that supports, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of people at a go in boarding schools, it's very possible to bring down costs and provide a service, an intervention that will save lives. Because out of these lives, we'll have it's the economy. It's the economy, because a guy like me would have died from addiction if nothing was done, and now I'm a serious participant in the economy. I mean, I buy, I consume, I pay taxes, I support my children. The difference, those investing in those programs in the long run is beneficial to all of us. So it is not just about helping, wasting money on no. It's about saving. It's about not just saving lives, it's also about saving the country's costs, reducing the costs. Even if you don't have no emotions, then use economics. You look at it economically and you'll see, we need to invest in these programs.
Do we have the capacity to do that?
Yes, we do. The only one of the biggest problems I find in our country is our human resource allocation. Many people do the jobs that they are not qualified to do. They are not trained to do. They are not passionate to do. They just do for a job. And when we do that, that's why we get in trouble. You find people who are running the administrations, which are supposed to lead into reduction of substance abuse, are people who have just been placed there by their connections, been put up there by their families or their connections to get a job to earn a living. So if the country was to find a way to match people who are passionate about what they do, in our area we are quite a number. I mean, some don't even come on TV. Perhaps one of the 1% come on TV, but there's people who can work in that field. So finding, just like these media houses, if you are to choose people who don't like to do what you do, I mean, the production and the service will be so low in quality. You have to have a passion. We need to figure out a way in which our country gets the right people for the right jobs. Not, and that is the biggest problem we have. We don't have the right people doing the jobs that are required. 20 years on since the formation of our Nakada Authority. It is very sad to see that Her Excellency has done in the last 6 months, probably more.
So you're calling out Nakada right now. You're calling them out.
It is historical. And they are facts, because they are facts. Facts can't lie, facts don't hide. And it's not even Nakada who I want to, but they can follow, they can see. See if this one lady can come up and do all this in a very short period of time.
Okay. As we finish, very quickly, just what role can we each play in this fight?
Yes.
In very few words.
Very few words.
Yeah.
One, if you have a problem, which is very possible, for you to seek help and get help, and help is possible, and we do recover. So anyone who is watching me, just know I'm a former heroin addict. I have got help. I've helped more than 5,000 people. There are many people around the world who have had this kind of problem, and there is a way in which you can seek help and get help.
Okay.
Two.
Thank you.
Family members.
Okay.
Family members, I would like you to know too that our people get better. If somebody has a problem, get the help they need. Nudge them towards the help. Do not throw them away. Do not give up on life. People, as long as they're alive, they're capable of changing. 3, if you don't mind.
We need to
society
finish.
at large. As society at large, we need to have county government and people who develop programs that are nuanced to dealing with these issues.
Okay.
And they should invest the little resources they have that are geared towards that area.
Okay.
For that.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Boniface. And as you've heard from him, he has really enlightened us on this particular topic, on drug addiction and the solutions to it. Thank you so much for coming to the program. Right now, we take a short break.
The National Construction Authority, NCA, is the legal body mandated to regulate the construction industry and coordinate its development. The authority, in partnership with KBC Channel 1, invites you for an accreditation drive and safety sensitization exercise under the theme Usalama kwa Ujenzi on Tuesday, 3rd October, 10th Street, Eastleigh. There will be entertainment and free education on matters of construction in Kenya. Come meet your favorite presenters and artists including Jua Kali, Mgenge, Dufla and Delegon. The exercise shall kick off from 9 a.m. from 10th Street, Eastleigh, next to Huduma Center, where we shall offer accreditation for construction workers and site supervisors. To be accredited, please carry a copy of your national ID, passport size photos, copies of academic certificates or recommendation letter from an NCA registered contractor. This exercise shall then be followed by a roadshow flagged off by the Kamukunji Constituency Member of Parliament, Honorable Abdi Yusuf Hassan. The roadshow will proceed to Shauri Moyo, Majengo, Bahati, Kariobangi, Fedha, Pipeline, Kayole, Dandora, Kangundo Road, Mwiki, Kasarani, and end at Roysambu. Jenga Haki, Jenga Smart. The National Construction Authority, promoting excellence in the construction industry.
It's a cocktail of emotions. The puns that cracks up the family. Greed that yields power and a hunger for success. Trends turn to foes. Survival for the fittest is the drive.
Who are we blackmailing?
But nothing beats the feud in a family where one disappears and another fights for the crown.
It was not supposed to go this far.
It's the desire to succeed that keeps us going, the deception that keeps us digging, and the laughter pill that keeps us living. Technology has become a crucial part of our society. Without technological advancements, so much of our everyday lives would be drastically different. As technology develops, it strives to fulfill the changing needs of society. This means that technology exists to help us achieve the things that we wouldn't be able to achieve without it. Take on Tech looks at the advantages and downside of technological innovation in a world that is becoming increasingly dependent on new digital technologies. Every Monday at 10:30 p.m.
I told you guys today, I'm the host of the show. Chipukizi amepata emergency kidogo. Na mabeste mko freshi.
Ladies and gentlemen, mwapi nduru ya 0-0. Ni kinini hiki kinawashika mdosi?
Zimenishika ni feeling.
Ng'ombe ya mtu.
Tunajaribu kuchezea hizo league za juu, but kuanzia ilianzia na humble beginnings.
Kila mtu sema ha kamata, ha kamata.
Chipukizi show.
From a family check, we now get into the transformative leaders segment. And joining me in studio at the moment is Deborah Kalei, who is a writer. And I have a book that she has written with me right here. It's right here if you can see it on your screens. And the headline or the topic, the title, headline in the headlines. The title of this book is Cry the Beloved Children, and she is here with us to talk about the art of writing. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya, Deborah.
Thank you, Vivian.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you, and thank you for having me today.
We are pleased to have you on the show today. If you can why did you write this book? We can just get straight into why you wrote this book.
It's actually probably an inspiration from my brother Kibwana Onguso, because the life we were leading was a difficult life. Yeah. And somehow he had put together some information of what was going on in our family. At the time I wasn't really interested, but the moment my dad passed away, I thought it's about time to tell the story of how our life was when we were growing up. Yes.
How did you come up with a topic, Cry the Beloved Children?
Actually struggled with the topic. At one time I was like, probably I should give it, you have no idea, but I thought, oh, probably people won't understand what this was all about. But the topic Cry the Beloved Children came about because I was like, we knew we were loved by my dad because my mom had left, but then that love was really never shown by him because of the influence he had from his wife. So that's why we were like, okay, we are beloved children, but all we did was cry while growing up. Yes.
If I may ask you, what are the tips to writing a good book?
First and foremost is to actually check what the other authors have put down together, and this one being a story of our lives, it's important to read biographies, because that gives you an idea of what people are talking about in their lives. And the tip I have for writing this book is that, you know, you go out there, talk to people, and read what people have written, and even just go on the websites and check out, you know, Google and check out, you know, what tips are out there for writing books.
What are the benefits of writing? This is your first book, right?
This is my first book, and I must say the fact that I wrote this book and completed it, to me it was kind of a healing process. So that's what has benefited me by writing this book. Yes.
It is a true story.
It is
a true story of 5 siblings.
Yes, it is.
You know, you and your siblings.
Yes.
So it's an actual true story.
It is an actual true story.
Was it difficult for you writing down your own story?
Yes, very difficult. Yeah, it took longer than I thought. I mean, it took me 2 years, just about 2 years to write it down, but the process of writing it, that book was very emotional. It was really difficult, and sometimes I would start writing the book, and in the process of writing I would just stop and just cry before I would continue. Yeah.
What was the most difficult part, or what is the most difficult part about you writing this particular biography? It's actually a biography.
Yes, it is. The most difficult part was, you know, the fact that whatever happened to us ended up in the death of my dad. And the fact that all this time, my dad thought he was there for us and we thought he was our protector, but he wasn't. But then due to everything that happened in his life and in our life, we lost him before we could even sit down and, you know, just resolve the issues that we were having. So that was the most difficult part for me. Yes.
It being a true story whereby you're not just talking about yourself, you're talking about experiences that you went through with your, including your sisters, your siblings as well.
Yes.
Did they approve of you writing the book?
They did.
Yeah.
They did, because like I said initially, when I got some of the information from Kibwana, I was like, okay, I hung on to it for a very long time. But after I'd gone back to Australia where I live, after burying my dad, I thought maybe it's about time that I actually write it down. But then again, I had the influence from my friend, because I used to spend a lot of time with one of my friends, Irene, and you know, I kept talking about my story all the time. And I talked to other ladies as well, and they were like, why don't you put it in a book? why don't you write it? And I was like, oh, I'm not an author really. I can't really do anything about this. But they said, just give it a go. And being a Christian, this lady told me, just pray about it. And probably God will help you in downloading all the information that you need put in the book. So that's how it happened. Yeah.
For an aspiring writer who's watching us right now, if you may just take us through the process of writing this book. You said it took you 2 years to write it?
It took me 2 years.
Just take us through that process from inception.
First and foremost, like when I was starting, for example, and I'm talking from my own experience, is that I was just putting everything down, you know. I wrote everything, the points that I needed to actually address. I put them down, and then slowly I went chapter by chapter, you know, just writing what it was. And you know, when writing a book, you may find that everything is all over the place, you know, but the main thing is just to put your points down. Once you have your points down, then think about how will this story actually flow. And for me, I decided to, you know, put it in such a way that it started with, you know, like my parents, my siblings, my grandmother, who was also pivotal in this story that I have written. And then I decided, like I've talked about my brother, Kibwana, he was the only son. And because my stepmother was fighting about the issue of inheritance, she was worried that if anything happens, he would be the sole beneficiary. She decided to fight him, and that's why his life, like, was even harder. Our lives were hard, but for him, there were so many attempts on his life because he was going to be the heir. And that is something I decided I make it really, you know, a very big part of the story. Though I also wrote about myself, because even during our trauma with this lady, some of the trauma was the beating and the hitting and, you know, like being sent out to sleep outside, you know, like you've done something very minimal and you're sent to go and sleep wherever, but not in the home. You're chased away from the home. One of my younger sisters, who was, you know, at the time she was about 2 years old, the youngest at the time, because the other one had died many years before. Just the fact that she couldn't sleep in the afternoon, my stepmother was so angry with her, and he actually threw a knife towards her, and it hit her shoulder and it stabbed her. And then one of the other sisters, because she said, you know, out of an innocent child's mind, asked my stepmother, how come you've not gone, you know, like the children are made to believe that you go somewhere and bring back babies? And she questioned why she had never brought a baby. My stepmother didn't like her for that. And what she did, she actually burnt her with coals and sent her away. And she used to hit her head against the wall. So those are the incidences. Kibwana, for example, he had those incidences that he has talked about where my stepmother influenced my dad to beat him up for something he hadn't done. But as for me, she didn't physically beat me, but she actually traumatized me just by the words that she was saying to me. And those are the words that have affected me up to today. You know, as a grown-up, some of the things you're told all the time, you know, you amount to nothing, you are nothing, the best you can be in life is be a maid, you get children out of wedlock and all that. So, you know, like in your life, when some things don't go as they're supposed to go, you start thinking, you know, maybe I'm not supposed to be who I am, maybe, you know. Every time somebody questions you about something, you think, it's because of her, you know. She said this to me, so I can't. I can never succeed in life, because that's what she told us. She told us, or told me not to waste my time even going to school, because I'll never pass, I'll never succeed. So those are the things that, you know, I decided to put down, but then I thought, despite writing about my siblings, I also needed to say something about myself.
And if I can just read a paragraph from page 4, it's on exactly what you're saying. And on page 4, there's somewhere where you've actually, it's in quotes, the words that were being said to you. You were told you are useless, you are stupid, you'll never amount to anything, you'll be maids. You'll never find school, you'll never finish school, you're failures, your children will be bastards. Don't waste time and money studying, because you will fail and you will become prostitutes like your mother. What do such words do to a small mind? I can imagine these words being said to young children.
Yes.
What exactly do they do to someone's young mind, and does it ever go away?
No.
Yeah.
These words, and sometimes, and as a parent, I always say, please be careful what you tell your children, because they actually live within your children. So be careful what you say, because when you say such words to a young mind, that's what they'll grow up thinking, that's what they are. That even when they do, for example, if they decide to become prostitutes, they'll just say, yeah, because I was told I'm going to be a prostitute. So, and they also say, the Bible says, there's power in the tongue. So whatever comes out of your tongue, please make sure it's something that's building somebody up and not tearing them down. That's why for children, please, parents, say the best. Say the best that you can say for your children, because that's how your children will grow up knowing that no matter what, I can do this. But this one affects children. Because even me at my age, it's still affecting me.
Yeah.
So you don't want that to be affecting your children. No. Yeah.
What are some of the topics that we can just mention that you've covered in the book?
Well, one of the other topics, because despite talking about our lives, and I decided probably the best thing that I can think about in this topic is, and despite what we went through, I know God was there for us, and I decided forgiveness. Forgiveness was a big thing. I know it's a struggle. It's been a struggle for me, to forgive. But one thing I know, that forgiveness is actually taking off the load that I've been carrying all my life. And somebody says, yes, forgive. You don't have to forget, but forgive, because when you forgive, you're actually freeing yourself. So despite everything that happened, forgiveness is the main topic for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Forgiveness is the main topic, and that's what you would want people to, get out of the book.
Yes.
You also touched on witchcraft.
Yes.
Can we get a bit into that?
Yes. I've talked about witchcraft because that's actually what happened to us. I've always said, and living in Australia, I remember telling people like a few times when I've talked about the book, I'm like, some people may not understand what witchcraft is about. But if we go back to the Bible, there is witchcraft. And this witchcraft actually really affected us. And I think there's a section in the book where I've mentioned, my stepmother. Like one time during the holidays, I'll just give an example. We got home from school and she took off with her friend. We don't know where she went. Then when she came back with all these concoctions. And you know what she told us? You take this. Do you know, an innocent child? They will take it. They've been told by an adult, you take this.
Yeah.
It was some ash mixed with some water, and then something that looked like an egg, a boiled egg. And she told us to eat it, and we were like, okay, why are we eating this? Or why are we drinking this? And you know what she told us? That this will help you to be clever in school. And we took it. We don't know what it did to us. But that was like the beginning of so many things that were happening. I've also mentioned like one time, a cousin of ours was living with us, and he had come from school, and at night before he went to bed, he just realized there were people who came to the house. My dad used to work shift work, and sometimes he would work at night. And my stepmother with these men slaughtered some chicken and spilled blood on my dad's pillow. I don't know what that meant. Like even for somebody who's like, what is this? You start questioning what that is. And then the other time we were traveling in a train, those days when the Kenya Railways had those good coaches, and we were traveling and going to up country to Vihiga, and suddenly I was sleeping and woke up, and when I was trying to get out of bed because I was at the top deck, there was plenty of blood on the floor. And I was like, what's this? And then they told me, you go back to sleep, just forget about this. So those are the many things that were happening to us, but we didn't know what it was all about, which I believe up to now, those things have affected us in one way or another. Yes.
Was there no one to talk to about this? And
no.
Couldn't you talk to your biological mother about this? Because it's not like your mom wasn't there, like she was still alive.
She was still alive.
Yeah, she was living.
She was still alive. She had left. Now, the thing about my mom leaving, my stepmother, by the way, was a very close friend of my mom. And I think my mom lived a very good life. My dad loved her. And these are the stories we keep hearing, because after my dad passed away, my uncles and aunties started telling us, what kind of life we lived and how caring dad was. And at one time we looked at them and we were like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I've never really felt that love from my dad. And the thing is, when my stepmother came into the picture, because my mom kept telling her how loving her husband was and how caring he was, I think she became jealous. And that's another thing about witchcraft, because in our culture, and I don't know about the other cultures, there's a concoction you put in the fireplace or in the jiko, and then when it starts burning and the smoke comes out, it's like a way of sending you away. So my mom left. She left us. I was only 8 years old. She never came back. And when we asked to see my mom, we were told if anybody starts questioning about that, we'll be cursed. So we never asked. So my mom was not in the picture. Since my mom left when I was about 8, I saw her 14 years later when I was at university. So we couldn't go to anyone. There was no one we could go to. My dad, obviously, a few times we tried to tell him what was going on. My dad never believed anything we told him. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe what would you, what word or what would you say to parents who are living with children who are not biologically theirs? Just a word for them.
Love
maybe.
them.
Yeah.
Love those children like they were your own, because you never know what happens in the future. These are the children who might even get you out of very dire situations, because children are innocent. Please, parents, whether they're yours or not, love them, and care for them.
Yeah. And for the parent because in your case, your dad was your biological dad and you were living with him, and then there was the stepmother.
Yes.
But your dad didn't see all these things that were being done to you.
No.
When you say one of your sisters was stabbed, you say your brother was, literally burned.
Yeah, my other sister. Yeah.
Yeah, your other sister was.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't your dad around? He's there.
He lived and worked away, so he only came once a month.
Yeah.
That's when he came back, because at the time when my mom left, we used to live in Nakuru, and then we moved and went to live on the farm. So my dad would come once a month, sometimes twice a month. So yeah, when all these things were happening, he wasn't there. And because of the fact that he didn't believe anything we told him, we chose not to tell him anything.
Yeah. So this also brings the matter of communication. Like for parents, they need to have a relationship with their children whereby I can feel, open to talk about my issues. Don't you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree, totally.
Yeah. There's somewhere also in the book where you said you had revealed these things to one of the, I think, bishops or pastors.
Yeah, so that's how come we got some material to start the book, because my stepmother was a member of a church, which maybe many people would call cults here. And what happened was she was actually getting promoted. So my brother thought, how can they promote somebody who's been so, who has traumatized kids, and she's been so bad to these kids. So he decided to write a letter to the bishop to tell him what she had actually done, because that was a way of trying to get the bishop not to promote her, because she was preaching one thing and practicing something different. That's how that came up, but the bishop didn't take action on that.
Yeah. Did that do something to you, your relationship with the church?
Not really, because we were not really going to that church. It's how we used to, though she forced us to go to that church when we were younger. But when we got older, we chose other paths.
There's also something else I saw that you touched on in the book, and that is the battle, after your dad passed on. And this is something that many families also get to go through after maybe a parent dies, the battle that ensues after, whereby you even need to go to court in terms of maybe securing an estate that the person had. And just, if you could just take me through that.
Well, as soon as my dad passed away, obviously, because we thought we are the biological children, we have the right to the estate, but that didn't happen. As soon as he passed on, my stepmother was on it, and she went to court to say that she needed to take over that property. So we've been having a battle. We are still in that battle up to now, because she has since passed away. She passed away 3 years after my dad passed away. But she also has a son who's not my dad's. He came to the family with his mom when he was 18 years old. But right now he's actually fighting us for that same estate, which does not belong to him. So the matters are, and they've been, and they're still in
we
court.
cannot really talk about because it's still in court. Yeah. But as we wind up with this conversation on this particular book, what kind of reader would you recommend this book to?
I would recommend this book not to young children, because some of this content in here probably would scare them. But anybody from the age of 17 upwards, they can read this book. Parents who don't know what to do with some of these situations, I recommend that they read this. And children who are going through tough times, and people who are going through tough times, I would recommend they read this book, because my encouragement to people is that trauma is there, and please don't just be quiet. It's good to talk to someone. Right now there's an opportunity that people can talk even to counselors and all. So in our case, we didn't have anybody to talk to about our situation, but we have counselors now and psychologists that these children can speak to if they're going through a tough time.
Yeah, aside from forgiveness as the main lesson that someone would get from this particular book, what other lesson maybe as we finish?
Well, as tough as life may be, we just have to encourage ourselves and encourage each other when somebody is going through a tough time. The other thing I would also recommend is, prayers. Prayers are a very important part of, like I've talked a lot about verses in the Bible where people can turn to God, especially when they're going through tough times. And as much as we go to the psychologists and all that, it's really important that, we put everything to God and ask God to guide us in our lives and to help us.
Okay, for someone who would love to get themselves a copy, where do they get the book?
They can go to Amazon or go to my website, crythebelovedchildren.com, to get a copy. On the 4th, which is the Wednesday, on Wednesday we are going to have a book launch. It will be at KICC in Parlor Room. I would encourage people to come if they would like to. We'll have a few hard copies that we are going to be selling, but they can still get copies from the website or from Amazon.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is where we end this particular discussion, but don't go too far. After the break, Mike Megwe will be right here talking about an issue that is of importance, and that is the El Nino rains.
Government of Turkana welcomes you to the Ehale Center in Lodwa Town for the 7th edition of the Turkana Cultural and Tourism Festival. From 12th to the 14th of October 2023. Come, experience the origin of mankind with its unmatched beauty, from the beaches of Lake Turkana to the oil wells of Lokichar. Live on Channel 1, Radio Taifa and KBC Turkana Service.
Kuna kitu kinakusumbua na sijaelewa ni nini.
Yaani mayai ni yangu ama ni ya kuku?
Zinapeleka nanga.
So you can probably show me where?
Unaona kwa ile parapara uende hivi ukibika kwa ile usunguke kwa roundabout. Sasa ukisunguka kwa hiyo roundabout uwebu anguke na hiyo mkono hii.
Not the washrooms, the restaurant itself.
Aren't you? Yes.
Kona shida. Kama hujaniandika kazi unaniuliza nini?
Basi utafanya yenye nimesema.
Mimi hata niko sana niko kasi.
Mimi si ningejua Kizungu aka ningetukana. Hata useme auchu. Shika, kamata.
If you're so sure about your accusations, I suppose you have a proof, right? I know how rotten you are. That is why it will only be me who's going to drag you out of my sawmill plant. Hey, you leave her alone, will you?
That's enough, Uriel!
You told my brother what I did. I have told you that when you irritate me, it will cost you very dearly, and I mean dearly.
Why don't you go with her instead of pursuing me just to annoy your brother? Because what can be expected from a man who allows his wife to treat him like this?
Vijana chapakazi wenye nguvu za ziada.
My youth, uko na talent ya kusing, spoken word, kucompose jingles ama any other unexploited artistic talent. Gava through Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy na KBC sasa wamekama up na project ya kupromote usanii called Studio Mashinani. Hizi ni studios ziko grassroots and they are fitted with high quality state-of-the-art equipment where you can produce quality audio and video music content for free. What's more, wanaoffer mentorship na talanta yako itakuwa promoted on KBC Channel 1 TV, Y254 na radio stations za KBC. Tembelea Studio Mashinani huko Comarox, Langata, Sauti House Mombasa, Kirwara huko Gatanga, Kitui next to Manyanyoni Chiefs Camp na Kisumu City wako hapo KBC station. Usilalie talent. This is your chance to commercialize and popularize your talent through Studio Mashinani.
I told you guys today, I'm the host of the show, Chipukizi. Amepata emergency kidogo. Na mabeste mko poa, mko freshi.
Ladies and gentlemen, mwapi nduru ya 0-0. Ni kinini hiki kinawashika mdosi?
Zimenishika ni feeling.
I wanna waste your time.
Ng'ombe ya mtu.
Tunajaribu kuchezea hizo league za juu, but kuanzia ilianzia na humble beginnings.
Kila mtu sema ha kamata.
Chipukizi show.
And we are back on Good Morning Kenya. I am Michael Migwe, and today we are talking about pre-El Nino preparedness for farmers. How prepared are we? What is the status of food security in the country as at now? And to help me with that conversation in studio, I'm joined by Julius Nyabicha, who is the program manager at Cereals Growers Association and a project manager at Farm Market Alliance. Bwana Julius, karibu.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
How are you feeling?
Good.
How is the month going about?
Every farmer in this country, not just farmers, but every Kenyan is now preparing for the El Nino rains.
Yes.
And we are trying to put together mitigation measures to ensure that we go through, and that at the end of the day, we have food on our tables.
Okay. To that person who does not know about CGA or the FTMA, briefly talk about the two.
CGA, Cereal Growers Association, is a non-for-profit organization that has been around since 1996. Yes. We basically bring together farmers, large-scale farmers, smallholder farmers, and so that we can be able to disseminate the important technologies for their production. We also link them to the market. At the end of the day, when farmers do production, they need to take their produce to the market, and we economically empower them.
Yes.
So CGA is there to bring together farmers, to empower them through the technology. You know, agriculture is an evolving field. Agriculture is technology savvy.
Yes.
And therefore we must keep on updating our farmers every day with new technologies. We must bring them together. we must make them understand that smallholder farmers, they have got more power, they have got more bargaining power when they come together. And we must also source for their markets. We must make sure that these farmers, once they do their production, they have the market, and ultimately they have money in their pockets. CGA is implementing a project that is backstopped by the World Food Program known as Farm to Market Alliance. Farm to Market Alliance is a very interesting project that is in 13 counties in this country. What we do, we all understand that in the space that we operate in Kenya, we do not have enough extension service providers. And therefore we bring together what we call farmer service centers, rural agripreneurs that we train, and they can be able to give service to other farmers. Through that, we also disseminate important technologies, most of them climate smart agriculture technologies, to these farmers to ensure that mechanization, for instance, is achieved, and all those technologies that mitigate against climate change are disseminated to the farmers. Once we do that, we also make sure that the farmers that do the production get their produce to the market safely and also with profit, because farmers are now agripreneurs, they're doing farming as a business. And finally, we are trying to put farmers together to ensure that they digitize their operations, because information is key. Most Kenyans, not just farmers, are suffering because of lack of information. And there is no better way to disseminate information than using the digital platforms. So we are doing what we call a farmer service center model. We are doing that through making sure that they have the right technologies. We link them to the market. At the end of the day, we try as much as possible to digitize so that they can have this information more affordably and more efficiently and more effectively. So that is, in a nutshell, that is Farm to Market Alliance, in a nutshell, and that is CGA. The Farm to Market Alliance, we are operating in 13 counties, in Migori, in Homa Bay, in Kisumu, in Busia, in Bungoma, Siaya. We are in Kakamega, we are in Elgeyo Marakwet, we are in Narok, we are in Nakuru, we are in Nyandarua, in Meru, as well as in Tharaka Nithi, those 13 counties. And soon we are expanding to other counties, but our services are available to any other farmer in this country, because we always have what we call spillover effects.
Now, let's talk about preparedness. What is the importance of preparedness to any farmer who is listening or watching this program right now?
Any farmer must prepare. And sometimes we do not get optimum production, we do not get optimum benefits from our farming activities, from agribusiness activities, because of lack of preparedness. Because just like any other business, farming is a business, agribusiness, that's what we call it. And actually we're now trying to avoid the use of farming. We call it agribusiness, because anybody that goes to the farm wants to do the farming either to put food on the table or to ensure that gets some income out of that activity. And therefore preparedness is extremely important. One, farmers must sit down and reflect on what they need in terms of resources. Land is a key factor in agribusiness, in crop production, or in farming, or in livestock production. So we must have appropriate land. The farmer must have resources in terms of capital on what it's going to do. The farmer must take stock of the weather conditions, the climate. The farmer must take stock of equipment that he will require, and the farmer must also take stock of where this is going to sell the produce after the production. So all these, along this value chain, until the farmer has money in his pocket, that's when you can call this an agripreneur. And that's the preparedness we're talking about. For instance, what is pertinent at the moment is the fact that we are about to face the El Nino rains. How are our farmers prepared? There are those areas farmers are supposed to plant. There are those areas farmers have already gotten to the harvesting period, and this is the most critical one. That farmers must make sure that they do not lose the produce that they've invested so much in when it comes to post-harvest losses because of the long rains, because of the El Nino rains. And therefore, together as the private sector, the government, we must come together as stakeholders to ensure that we have proper mitigation measures to cushion the farmers against losses during harvesting, during transport, during storage, during processing, until the farmer has food, until the consumer has food on the table.
Yes.
So that's the preparedness we are talking about. Yes. For instance, right now, as a Farm to Market Alliance,
yes,
as CGA,
yes,
we have put in place measures to ensure that we disseminate important bulk SMS messages to farmers in various parts of this country to warn them against the El Nino rains. In those areas where we shall be having rains, we shall want them in good time.
Yes.
It's not just warning, it's also putting together measures. For instance, if we know farmers in North Rift, farmers in Trans Nzoia are harvesting, and the rains are coming, what do? You must avail threshers, you must avail dryers, you must avail proper transportation facilities, you must avail proper storage facilities, so that at the end of the day, it's not just disseminating information, but it is disseminating information accompanied by solutions. And solutions means you have to partner, so that you can have the proper equipment. If it's dryers, you have dryers. I'm glad to say that I've heard the government is going to disseminate a number of dryers in these areas. But then information must be available so that we know if the government, for instance, is going to disseminate 40 dryers, where are these dryers going to be? A lot of our people are suffering because of lack of information. And this is the information that we want to avail. And that's why I said in Farm to Market Alliance, we have a pillar known as digitization. The moment you do digitization, it means that information can travel faster, can travel to the intended recipient, and at the end of the day, there is efficiency, there is effectiveness in this in the information that is being disseminated. So that is critical. So that information has to be there, and that information cannot be delivered by the government alone. The government might provide the threshers, but who is going to give the information? It is upon us, the private sector, the government, and anybody that in the agricultural space to give this information, to provide it, and to make sure that it reaches the intended recipients, the farmers who are harvesting, so that they can be able to use this equipment.
Now, let's talk about food production in the country. Given that the country experienced rains this year, and might I say torrential ones. Now, what, in your own opinion, what is the status of food production in the country as at now?
I must thank the government first because of the subsidized fertilizer, which has boosted the food production in this country. We expect our target was to have 44 million metric ton, 44 million bags of maize harvested, which is almost, not sufficient, but almost there. So that is a good gesture. But the question that you must ask yourself, yes, we might have sufficient food today, but shall we have the same sufficient food tomorrow? After 5 months, after 6 months? Because our production cycle is 1 year, is 12 months. So if we have food that is enough today, what we must, as Kenyans, what we must ask ourselves, how do we process this food? How do we store this food so that the same food is available in the same quality in another 5-6 months, in another 1 year, so that we can be able to feed our people? So we might have enough food, yes, but if we do not do what we call proper post-harvest management, then we will not have the food. So our focus should now shift to post-harvest management of this food. How do we transport our grain? I was in Kitale last week, and I saw how farmers are struggling to not only harvest, but to do threshing, but to do drying. So how do we avail dryers so that farmers can be able to dry their maize and store it? How do we make sure that the storage facilities are proper, disinfected, and we have enough storage facilities? How do we make sure that the National Cereals and Produce Board that buys from the farmers is up to the task, buying in good time, ensuring that this is properly stored? How do we make sure that NCPB not only focuses on buying, but also goes a notch higher to ensure that these farmers are able to mitigate against the food losses? This country loses about 30% of grains and pulses. After production, 30%. Let me give you a quick math.
Yes.
If we are producing about 44 million bags of maize,
yes,
a bag is about 5,000, 6,000.
Yeah.
We are talking about an industry, maize alone, which is about 240 billion. If you lose 30%, that brings you to about 70 to 8 billion.
Wow.
Can you imagine that the country is losing 70 to 8 billion Kenya shillings? Billion Kenya shillings.
That's a lot of money.
As post-harvest, poor post-harvest management.
Yes.
A farmer that has invested heavily in terms of inputs, a resource-poor farmer that has been able to produce and now is losing 30%. Those are the measures that we must take into account, both the private sector as well as the government, to ensure that we don't lose the 30% that we lose.
Which all boils down to storage.
It boils down to storage, it boils down to technology. Let me give you some historical perspective.
Okay.
When we grew up, there is what we used to call the traditional granary, where you used to store our maize, even without shelling. That's where we used to store our maize. But then it came with its fair share of challenges, that the maize would be attacked by animals, rodents, and it could be stolen. Yeah. The weather conditions, when it's very wet, the maize would get wet. And we moved now to the bags. Once we moved to the bags, then we discovered we still have weevils. We still have other small animal insects affecting the maize. And then we moved to the pesticides. Then we discovered the pesticides, one, are expensive. Two, the pesticides are laborious, because if you're going to store your maize, for instance, for 1 year, then you have to apply the pesticide probably 3-4 times.
Yes.
And you have got to remove your maize from the store to 100 bags and do that over and over again. And then thirdly, and most important, we discovered that the pesticides are not safe for human use. Sometimes we do not follow the instructions. At the end of the day, the level of cancer is increasing in this country because of what we consume.
Yes.
Now we moved to what we call hermetic storage. This is where we are. This is the current storage that we have. Hermetic means airtight.
Yes.
It means that you do not need to use the chemicals. You can have your maize in a bag that is airtight. Once it's inside there, there is no insect that can survive in an airtight condition.
Yes.
And therefore you can be able to store that. You can have it in plastic drums, you can have it in metal silos, you can have it in cocoons, you can have it in hermetic bags, which are all over in this country. That's where we are.
Yes.
Unless our farmers understand that we have this technology and this is what is effective, how will they know and how will they be able to use some of these technologies? So I've just given you a very simple and a short historical perspective on our storage, on our storage journey. This is where we are. But how readily available do we have this? How do we come together? How do we ensure that every single farmer uses this for health? And also to ensure that the produce does not lose quality, the quantity is maintained. There is something else that most Kenyans do not understand, that what we have what we call hidden hunger. Hidden hunger is when you consume food in plenty, you think that you're consuming, but nutritionally there is no value. For instance, if you consume maize that has been weeviled, that has been attacked, that has been infested by insects, the best part of that maize has already been consumed. So what you're consuming is just a shell. Okay? And then we have the worst that is hidden, known as aflatoxin.
Aflatoxin, yes.
Aflatoxin is so serious because you cannot see aflatoxin with your eyes. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. So you must follow the procedure for you to avoid aflatoxin. Many people ask why. Sometimes you go to the bread basket areas of this country, counties of this country, and then you get stunted children, malnutrition. It is because there is enough food, but if the food is contaminated with aflatoxin, the nutrients in that food do not make their way to the human body, especially the children. So you'll see children that are stunted in a bread basket area. You ask yourself, why do we have malnutrition in these areas when there is so much food? The food is in plenty. But it's not clean food for human consumption. It's food that has been contaminated by aflatoxin. Aflatoxin is so bad, especially to the children, to the toddlers. They get stunted, and you know, the moment you see a human body is stunted, even the human brain is stunted.
Yes.
So that's why we have this problem, and we must start having this conversation with the Kenyans and tell them and disseminating this important information that this is indeed what we need to do.
Yes.
We have aflatoxin.
Yes.
So in terms of post-harvest losses, we have many losses. You lose in terms of weight, you lose in terms of nutrition, you lose in terms of quality, you lose in terms of commercial value, and you lose 100% when it is aflatoxin contaminated, because there's nothing you can do to that food. You cannot give it to animals because it will get back to you. You cannot probably use it for brewing beer. It will still get back to the human body. So you even incur an extra cost in disposing of, in destroying that food. That is how serious this situation is.
Now, when you talk about El Nino and preparedness, how can the government and farmers come together to ensure there is adequate and comprehensive preparations before the rain start pounding?
Let me bring something to the fore that I've been thinking about.
Yes.
When you look at the Ministry of Health, that is what we call Community Health Volunteers, CHVs.
Yes.
Those are the last mile service providers.
Yes.
If you look at the Ministry for Interior, we have the Nyumba Kumi. When you come to the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries Development, we need to have a deliberate conversation and start thinking on how we have the last mile service providers akin to the Nyumba Kumi, akin to the community health volunteers. Why do we say so? We say so because if you look at it critically, the extension service providers through the Department of Agriculture that is devolved to the counties, they do a wonderful job, but they are not enough. The counties where we operate in, we work with them very closely, but they are not enough. And that is the reason why Farm to Market Alliance as a project, we came up with a model we call the Farmers Service Centers, so that we can pick the lead farmers and not only turn them into opinion leaders and providing extension services to the farmers, but we can turn them to agripreneurs so that they can have multiple income streams. Today, if it's planting time, this Farmer Service Center is connecting the farmer to the right farm inputs. And through that is getting a commission from the farm input suppliers. When it comes to during harvesting time, the same farmer is now linking this, the same Farmer Service Center is now linking the farmers to the market. When it comes to production, the Farmer Service Center is now linking to mechanization and technologies.
Yes, we'll be talking more about that. Then do you think there is enough awareness on how farmers ought to prepare for the farming? Let's talk about farming preparedness, the practices. Are there enough? Is there enough awareness on the same?
Yes, there are too many. Actually, we have got too many players in the agricultural sector. Besides the government, and we know that agriculture is now devolved. Besides the government, we have got so many interventions. We've got so many private sector players. What do we need to do in this country? We need to make a deliberate effort to bring together so that the government plays that role of regulating the sector, the agricultural sector. We need to know what NGO X is doing, what services are being provided through that NGO, so that we do not concentrate on one area and leaving the other areas unattended. We also need to have preparedness in terms of information, putting together information that is coherent. Because if I'm giving information from this quarter, another institution is giving information, we need to put this information together and give it as a package so that farmers receive information not from too many quarters. It could be limited information, but information that addresses almost all the aspects of agriculture. For instance, as we get to El Nino rains, we are now tailor-making information messages. The message I send to Kisumu is not the same message I send to Nyandarua, because Kisumu could be harvesting, Nyandarua could be planting.
Due to different weather patterns.
Correct.
Yes.
And you know, sometimes some of the things that happen in this country, they leave you wondering. If you go to Kisumu and the Siaya, they produce rice. Believe me, 90% of that rice goes to Uganda. It goes to Uganda unprocessed before it's milled. So it's milled in Uganda. The Ugandan retain much of the byproduct. They sell the same rice back to Kenya with a profit. Why should we do? And the only investment that we require is probably a miller. We put a miller there, and we educate our farmers that the moment you add value, however small it is, you get something, you get a profit. So we should stop this. And then the government should make deliberate effort in terms of preparedness to ensure that our borders are not porous. If we do not have enough food in the country, there is no point of selling that food to another country. Yesterday I was listening to news and I saw some farmers say that the people buying the maize from their farms are not Kenyans.
We'll come back to that point, but we are going to take a very short break. We'll be right back.
Government of Turkana welcomes you to the Ehale Center in Lodo Town for the 7th edition of the Turkana Cultural and Tourism Festival. From the 12th to the 14th of October 2023. Come, experience the origin of mankind with its unmatched beauty from the beaches of Lake Turkana to the oil wells of Lokichar. Live on Channel 1, Radio Taifa and KBC Turkana Service.
One year in office, 23 ministries. Time to review the journey in implementing the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. What is your assessment of the government's performance? Will they ace the performance test? Tune in to KBC News at 9 p.m. for the government scorecard.
Ushindani hapa lazima na kuulizana maswali lazima tuulizane. Kate, what is this now?
Wakili, shut up and double your order. Manake huu mkutano utakuwa mrefu sana.
Ni kawaida yake kutoka mapema ofisini kila siku.
Kila siku?
Kila siku.
Afu wewe mwenyewe mrembo ni ndogo ndogo. Waitwa nani?
Nimekuwa kazini kwako na sikukuona, umetoka? Lakini it's too much. It's not good for business.
I told you guys today, I'm the host of the show. Chipukizi amepata emergency kidogo. Na mabeste mkopoa, mko freshi.
Ladies and gentlemen, wapi nduru ya 0-0? Ni kinini hiki kinawashika mdosi?
Zimenishika ni feeling.
I wanna waste your time for
Ng'ombe ya mtu.
Tunajaribu kuchezea hizo league za juu, but kuanzia ilianzia na humble beginnings.
Kila mtu sema kamata.
Chipukizi show.
Good morning once again. Welcome back to the show. Now, before we went on a break, we were talking about the awareness on how farmers should prepare before El Nino. And you said, so if you can continue on that point.
Yeah, the most important is that we need, from the Met Department,
yes,
we already have information.
Yes.
When El Nino starts, we shall have accurate and up-to-date information as to when it's going to rain where and how much that rainfall is going to be.
Yes.
And we also know how long El Nino is going to take.
Yes.
What we must now start investing in is on information technology and how to disseminate this information. We have been tailor-making as CGA, as Farm to Market Alliance project.
Yes.
We already started disseminating information that we expect El Nino rains, and therefore farmers should start preparing.
Yes.
Preparation in terms of those areas that farmers are now planting, they should prepare on what crop to plant.
Yes.
For instance, we know a crop like beans do not tolerate so much rainfall. And therefore, farmers should be aware that if it's beans, they should be able to wait probably towards the tail end of the El Nino, and then they can do the planting. But we have other plants. We have got other crops that tolerate a lot of rain, and this is the time we should be doing it. If you're doing maybe planting tree crops, avocado and otherwise, fruit trees, this is the time that you should be happy and doing it. But in those areas where harvesting is taking place, they need to be a bit more careful, because I don't know of a crop other than probably tea. Most food crops, especially grains and pulses, are very sensitive when it comes to wet harvesting, and that calls for investment in technologies. I have already talked about dryers.
Yes.
The government has put aside some money, I know.
Yes.
And part of that money is going to dryers.
Yes.
If these dryers are going to be available, then we need to use information technology to understand where they will be. For instance, if you have a tool in a ward that's producing maize this week, the farmers should know so that they can take their maize for drying.
Yes.
If we move to another area, and these farmers should continue knowing that.
Yes.
So technology is going to be key, especially on threshing, drying, transportation, storage. That is going to be key. Even where we store the food that we have harvested, it should be a store that is well disinfected, that is clean, that is big enough, that can that is not leaking, because we shall have rains. This is the preparedness we are talking about. The first is information, the second is equipment, the third is to know what is happening at what time. Okay, that is key. That is important for us. If we do not have that kind of preparedness, then we lose it. And then finally, on that preparedness is on how do you bring the various stakeholders together. How do you bring the private sector together? How do you bring the farmers and their representatives together? How do you bring the government together? How do you coin message? How do you put together message that can be able to address all these issues, and maybe message that's universally agreed by all these stakeholders.
That has actually brought me to my next question about, are there collaborations between CGA, FTMA and the government to enhance adequate preparations before El Nino starts?
Every county that we work, CGA works in 28 counties in this country. Farm to Market Alliance project that I manage works in 13 counties that I mentioned. Every single county where we work with the government. You cannot, the private sector is basically implementing the master plan for the government of the day. And therefore we must sit together with the government through the Department of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries in those counties to agree on what we need to do. So we work together. Our collaboration is extremely good. All the meetings we have the government in those meetings. Even when we implement, we have the government to backstop and also to participate even in trainings on those meetings. So we work together. And also from the other players. For instance, if you're an NGO, you're implementing an intervention in production. You could be having another NGO that is implementing an intervention on marketing. So you must come together, synergize to ensure that at the end of the day, it's the smallholder farmer that gets the benefit and moves from point A to point B.
Now, let's talk about government subsidy. There was an issuance of subsidized fertilizer. Are we utilizing it effectively?
We have seen, first I must thank the government of the day, that for the first time there was very good subsidy program, and I think it trickled in most parts of this country. It can never be 100%, but in most parts of this country, the farmers felt it. They got the fertilizer, and that's why we have a good harvest this year. What we must do, I think, is now incumbent upon the government to start thinking on how to have the subsidy program to be private-led. Let the fertilizer producers, those who are in the business of fertilizer, start running this. Let the government implement in terms of regulation, in terms of taxes, and then we can leave this to the private sector, but make sure that the government has a watchful eye to ensure that this is happening, so that the private sector can run it, so that at the end of the day, we have a good subsidy program, but we also do not distort the market in terms of inputs. That would be my advice. It's a good program. We are happy. Farmers are happy that they have been able to produce, but we need now to start thinking on how to move it more towards the private sector, make it more efficient, move it to the private sector, but the government remains there as the watchdog to make sure that it is being implemented, and the smallholder farmer is getting the benefits of the subsidy, not only in fertilizer, but we need to move it to seed. We need to move it to agrochemicals. We need to move it along that production value chain.
Now, last month, the month of September, we had the climate change summit here in Nairobi, and I would want to know how is the climate change affecting agriculture, especially in Kenya?
Thank you. A very pertinent question. When we talk about climate change, any player in the agricultural sector must be very worried, and that is why all the interventions that we have are what we call climate smart agriculture. All of the technologies that we have must address issues of climate change. For instance, I want to give you a few examples. El Nino rains are coming. We know after El Nino rains, we might have prolonged drought. What are we doing about the water that we shall be having? This is the time that we should be talking to farmers to do what we call water harvesting. This is the time that we should be constructing dams. And this is what, like Farm to Market Alliance, we have already started doing this. We are subsidizing the construction of dams so that we give dam liners. A farmer gives 50%, we give 50%. After El Nino rains, the farmer has water that can last maybe another 6 months, so that farmer can be able to do irrigated agriculture. That's one. Two, when we talk about climate smart agriculture, we are talking about a number of issues. One, we keep on turning our soils because we do disc plowing. We plow today, next year we plow, we expose the soils to soil erosion, we expose the soil to disturbances, the soil microorganisms do not survive under those conditions. And even the water holding capacity of the soil is compromised. What we do as a project, as CGA and as Farm to Market Alliance, is now to bring in what we call a minimum tillage. You have a farm, you don't have to use a disc plow, you use a reaper, so that there is limited area where you can open up the soil, the other soil is intact. When it rains, however small that rain is, it will be retained there and your crop can move to maturity without a problem. And then now, the other areas you use what we call herbicides. When you look at this intervention at the end of the day, it's cheaper, it's cost effective, it's faster, and it's more profitable because any farmer must be an agripreneur, must do farming as a business. Two, we're now moving to mixed farming, where if a farmer is having a few enterprises in terms of crops, this farmer should also have a few enterprises in terms of livestock, because they play complementary roles. What we get in terms of manure from the animals goes to the farm. The remains from the farm, from the crops, go to the animals. We're also looking at diversification. If you look at a county where we operate in like Meru, Meru has very good diversification despite the fact that does not have very good and reliable rainfall, they still are able to survive because of diversification of enterprises and the value chains.
Yes.
You have got this, you've got animals, you have got potatoes, you've got grains. That is where we want to move to. We are talking about agroforestry. Any farmer that is doing farming, we do not want to see tracts of plain land without a tree.
Yeah.
We need farmers to start planting trees, like what is happening in Kisii, what is happening in Nyamira, what's happening in most parts of this country now who have started adopting. And if you look at those areas, there is sufficient rainfall because of the trees. Yeah. We need to start now interrogating our systems. What do we plant? How do we even do the mixed farming in terms of crops? These are some of the interventions that we call climate smart agriculture. So climate is an important factor, and climate change is real. So it is us to adopt through technology to climate change so that we can be able to mitigate.
Yes.
And it was very pertinent for us to have the Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi.
Yes.
And I'm sure if we did not learn something, we ought to have learned something, and we must keep on learning something. Any intervention now, even in the government, is climate smart agriculture. And we can only do that through technology. We need to move to mechanization. And how do we do that? For instance, in Farm to Market Alliance, we've got what we call hubs. You might have one person owning a tractor in a village or even in a ward. But that tractor should be able, because you're talking about smallholder farmers, that tractor should be able to serve as many farmers, if not all, in that ward, in that village.
Yes.
You can only do that through a digital platform where there's somebody who can book and know, in this area we shall be having 100 acres ready to be reaped.
Yes.
The tractor can come and do that work, not the tractor coming to do reaping for only 1 acre.
Yes.
So that you can consolidate that, put it together, do aggregation of the land to be reaped, and then we have the tractor to do it. You move to another area. These are simple digitization interventions that we can use to ensure that farmers in this country get the maximum from what we call mechanization, tools, mechanization, technologies in the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, there is something we need to talk about. It's involving youth. We are living in an information age, and the youth are everywhere, online, everywhere. They are doing everything. Now, how can we rope in the youth to engage in agriculture and more so agribusiness? Because most of them want to do something that makes money. And agriculture, to some of them, may not be so much of an option, probably because of what is involved. So how can the youth be roped into getting into farming?
You've asked towards the tail end of this interview the most important question, the youth in agriculture. Let me shock you that in Kenya, I think the average age of a farmer in Kenya is about 62. 62 years.
Yes.
That is worrying. Agriculture is a science. Agriculture is technology savvy.
Yes.
And therefore we need more youth to agriculture.
Yes.
What have we done as CGA? What have we done as a project, Farm to Market Alliance, in the 13 counties that I manage?
Yes.
Is to have a deliberate conversation with the youth, listen to them. Let us not deceive ourselves that we know what the youth want. Let the youth tell us what they want. So we are, as a project, we're giving a voice to the youth. And they tell us, this is what we want, this is how we want to do it.
Yes.
So we have been doing that. We have brought together the youth so that we can be able to listen to them. And out of the conversation that we have with the youth, now then we can be able to tailor-make interventions for them to get into agribusiness. But in a nutshell, one, the youth want something that is technology savvy.
Yes.
They want to work on a platform. They want something that's digitized. And that is why, as a project, we have a pillar known as digitization. Because WhatsApp, they want to have a platform there where they can be able to see the price of input of the produce that they want to sell.
Yes.
And the two want technology. If you are probably reading a djembe, what we want to see, we want a farmer that is on a tractor, agriculture, and maybe on a That's what we want. Unless we make an agriculture, it becomes a tall order for you to. Unless we digitize our agriculture, tall order for you to have the youth.
Yes.
Something else that we must do is to look at the crops that the youth are a bit impatient.
Yes,
if you want to tell a youth to grow sugarcane,
yes,
it becomes something that is not workable to the something like horticulture. Today, like high iron beans that we promote as a project,
yes,
you plant today in some areas, 75. Youth can be patient for those 75. Then the cycle is done, money in the pocket.
It's about short-term.
That's where we need to start from. Because at the end of the day, if you discover that the youth is impatient,
yes,
and they need something, a quick fix,
yes,
get the quick fix. From there, they will be able to and they will step into what we call now longer. But mechanization, digitization,
yes,
and then short cycle value chain.
Yes.
Needs to go together with them.
Yes.
Some of this, like now we have a program where we are going to teach the youth on how to do business plan, to loan records. They can be able to get a loan from the bank. We have in the is finance process. They do not want to give all those things. When you then you can now be able to address issues to do with the youth and the trend of having age of a farmer in Kenya at 62. Probably we move it to 50 and around 40.
Yes. Bwana Julius, for gracing our show. We are very grateful for you. There you have it. Julius Nyabicha, Program Association and at Farm to Market Kenya. That caps the discussion on Good Morning Kenya. Mike Megwe, let's do good day.
So to have a like all the team, I think is a
head down, still going and scoring. It's a pace.
He can score goals. He's with the head. We hear fact, and we that he's with us.
The spearhead of Bayern's barnstorming attack. Now is sold there to Dortmund.
Lined up without last season's Nicholas Fulcrum. But that after just stepped up himself.
sehr, sehr guten Spieler verloren. Das müssen wir jetzt eng zusammenrücken und damit haben wir heute den ersten Schritt getan.
Wolfsburg had kicked their season off with 2 wins, but a lack of costs back in. John Anthony Brooks with the leveller. It proved a game-changing moment as Hoffenheim began to dominate. Maximilian Bayer breaks, they all count. Courtesy of Robert. To ruin their mistakes.
Das ist ein Fehlerspiel, das wir gewinnen zusammen und wir müssen diese Niederlage heute nicht.
Versus Bochum was a game of kind. Tough tackle early on before opening the scoring through deep. First counter-attack. Last long. Bochum avoided defeat thanks to a second strike for Asano. In the Bundesliga. His English is improved.
We need